Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Friendship Empire. I am the Empress, and today we are talking about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And hello to Movie of the Week in the chat. I see you there. Well, this is a topic I have definitely wanted to avoid talking about the Sussexes because Meghan and Harry are so incredibly not just controversial but polarizing. And whether you love them, hate them, or are completely indifferent to them, which seems to be either the largest group or the smallest group, it's very hard to tell. They are definitely a couple that you can't help but hear about. And if you are here listening to this stream, then I'm assuming you have your own opinions and feelings about the Sussexes and what they've been doing for the past 5 years. So the reason why I decided to cover the Sussexes, I had other topics. I was all ready to get into Le Bal des Débutantes. I was all ready to continue with the Wildenstein series, Jocelyn and the others. But then this Vanity Fair cover story came out. And I have to say, I was very surprised. Vanity Fair in the past, and let me pull up the image. Here we go. This is the cover of the latest issue of the American version of Vanity Fair magazine. This is the February 2025 edition, and here you can see Harry on the right and Meghan on the left. And the image alone is, excuse me, a little surprising, with Harry in the lead, looking so much taller than his smaller wife, and he's looking almost ahead. She's looking off to the side, definitely away from him, and both of them wearing sunglasses. It's not the most friendly image that one could use. You would think if they wanted Vanity Fair wanted a friendly image of the Sussexes to put on, they would have one where you could see their faces properly, not obscured by the sunglasses. You could see their eyes. They would be looking forward, or perhaps even looking at one another, gazing lovingly, admiringly at one another, that sort of thing. And also, surprising that Harry, as I said, is in the lead, because it definitely feels as though he is not the one who is in the lead in the relationship, not the partner who takes the lead. Although it is also telling that he is walking forward and she's looking off to the side, as though she sees something better, perhaps that has caught her eye. And considering the rumor that this article lets loose into the world, an article I had, a rumor that I had not seen publicly aired before, at least not in the mainstream media, that there was the rumors of a possible divorce. And of course, divorce rumors not necessarily rare for Harry and Meghan over these years, but the rumor that Meghan would have been shopping a book about her post-divorce life, her post-divorce memoir, not post-divorce from husband number one, or supposed husband number one. If you believe in the she actually has another first husband conspiracy theory, perhaps you consider Trevor Engelson to be husband number two. But as far as official acknowledgments go, Trevor was husband number one. But no, we are not talking about post-divorce number one. We're talking about post-divorce number two, which has not happened, at least not yet. So again, I was very shocked that Vanity Fair, which has been very supportive of the Sussexes, giving them a lot of positive coverage, a lot of, not only Meghan's Vanity Fair cover story, the Harry and Meghan cover story, at least one other Harry and Meghan cover story, but pretty overwhelmingly positive coverage. And when Vanity Fair decides to turn on you, that's a pretty big deal, considering Vanity Fair, well, as one article that we're going to take a look at a little bit, a reaction article that came out today being the 20th of January, 2025, reacting to the Vanity Fair article, describes Vanity Fair as the U.S. Celebrity Bible. I don't know if I would go that far, but it certainly, I suppose, could take claim to be the #1 celebrity magazine in the U.S., and certainly one a bit of a prestige publication published by Condé Nast. So, again, they've been pretty supportive of Harry and Meghan, individually and as a couple. And now it seems that things have turned. So we are going to read this article in its entirety, and then we will look a little bit at the end after we're finished reading this article at some of the reactions that have come out, some of the media reactions to this article. So let's get started. I am reading this off of lipstickalley.com, that wonderful gossip message board website, because the Vanity Fair cover story is paywalled. So if you are trying to read it on the vanityfair.com site, that will not be possible unless you can log in. Otherwise, you have to get your copy on the newsstands. Or you can just listen to it and read along if you have eyes on the screen. I don't know if that text is visible or how visible it is. Let me take a look. If I can make it a little larger, if anyone wants to read along. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, that did not work. Let me try again. There we go. That text is a little larger, and let me see. I'm waiting to see how it looks. Movie of the week, if you in the chat can see. Is that legible to you on your screen? Okay, I think it's okay. But anyway, you're probably mostly listening rather than reading along. So here we go. Cover story. Inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's big business ambitions 5 years after their royal exit. Ensconced in their cozy Montecito mansion, the Sussexes are living the American dream. By all accounts, the love is real, but their foray into moguldom has not always been a smooth ride. And that's by Anna Peel, dated January 17, 2025. And then the lovely illustration here in orange of Harry and Meghan. Continuing. The house proved it. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex could have it all. Their Montecito home offered all the fresh promises of a 21st century California mansion and the cloistering of a gated neighborhood from which they could emerge on their own terms. In the house's 13 fireplaces, described as mostly centuries-old examples brought over from France, there was even some European history, stripped of any potentially uncomfortable context, which is kind of like Prince Harry himself. Some European history stripped of any potentially uncomfortable context. Okay, continuing. At $14.65 million for more than 18,000 square feet, half the current median price per square foot in Montecito, Rockbridge was a steal. The oligarch owner's romantic relationship had deteriorated to the point where he was compelled to offload far below market value, according to a source with knowledge. And the property seemed just right for the Duke and Duchess, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And that's kind of interesting that they would, that an oligarch would need to offload his house for cheap. A romantic relationship, a marriage. it's odd that it doesn't say, and I don't want to fully interrupt the reading of the article right now, but if you can see, oligarch owner here leads to a Forbes.com article from 2020 about the owner. And there's a little bit more information. He's interesting. And if anyone is familiar with the Duke of York, Harry's uncle, and the sale of Sunninghill Park, the old mansion. What did they call it? They used to call it South Fork or South York or South Pork or some play on the name of the ranch on the old TV show Dallas. It was basically the Duke and Duchess of York, when they were married, Sarah and Andrew, had built a type of, I guess, McMansion-y style estate that was supposed to be their family home, where they were raising Princesses Bee and Eugenie, and it was seen as a sort of American, excessively grandiose place for them to live. And why were the royal residences that existed already not good enough for the Yorks? And so the ranch on the old Dallas TV show, which was about an oil baron and his family, was called South Fork Ranch. So they called the York's estate South York, or if they wanted to make fun of Sarah's weight, South Pork. And then eventually that estate was offloaded to a rather sketchy individual for I think it was a lot more than it was worth. The estate was it was either not in good condition or it was allowed to deteriorate after the purchase. But the person who bought it, and this is another story for another time, the details of this story. But anyway, they well overpaid for the estate. And, you know, people might think cynically that there might have been a reason, like a sort of bribey reason, that this person may have overpaid for the York estate. Now, I wonder if this is sort of a reverse Sunninghill, that there might be a reason why you would give someone something for less than it's worth. An oligarch having a romantic relationship that falls apart. It wasn't his only property. It wasn't his only money. So it's not a good enough excuse for me. And it does seem a little bit like that whole Epstein getting a Manhattan townhouse for $1 from his mentor kind of thing. But I don't know. Yes, movie of the week in the chat says, sounds like a shady situation, maybe laundering, but, well, we don't know because the oligarch now is no longer with us. He is deceased, so he can't be questioned about his reasons for selling, his property for such little money. Anyway, so continuing with the article. It was the perfect launchpad for Archwell, their nonprofit and entertainment studio, an approximation of a part noblesse oblige, part aspiring, independently wealthy mogul model, one that Elizabeth, Charles, and William rejected by fiat during the January 2020 Sandringham Summit. And there's the cover article again, the cover story entitled American Hustle. Again, not a very complimentary term. Being called a hustler, well, it might be a compliment in some circles, but generally not very flattering. Continuing. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Sorry, that's the caption for the image. Okay, this January, that's right now, marks 5 years since that failed parley. Leaving the royal family has brought tests for the couple, legal, financial, reputational, personal, and practical. And these all lead to other articles. Let's see, this one, legal, Prince Harry, legal, about Rupert Murdoch and the Murdoch press. The financial one is an article from The Cut. How do Prince Harry and Meghan Markle make their net worth? The reputational one is another Vanity Fair article about Spotify and Netflix deals. I guess that went bad. The Spotify one ended, definitely. The Netflix one not doing so great. Vanity Fair, yeah, okay, about royal duties and Kate. And then the last one, another Vanity Fair article about Archewell launch delayed. Okay, continuing. Going from divinely chosen, or at least chosen by someone else who was divinely chosen, members of a 1,200-year-old institution, to startup founders in exile is a tough adjustment. But there has also been opportunity. Over many months, Vanity Fair spoke with dozens of people who have worked with and lived alongside the couple to understand the impact they've had on their new coastal California community, the challenges of enacting the ambitions of two first-time CEOs, and how their experience with the monarchy foreshadowed some of their current difficulties. Harry and Meghan declined to be interviewed for this article. Harry still works closely with the charities he founded, the Invictus Games Foundation and Centabale, an organization focusing on, quote, mental fitness, unquote. Okay, whenever they put these things in quotes, it's always their little bit of shade. It's like when they call Princess Martha Louise's husband the self-proclaimed shaman, and they will even put self-proclaimed shaman in quotes, which when you say self-proclaimed, you don't really need to put it in quotes. But anyway, it's that shade, the quotes. Okay, quote, mental fitness, unquote, and the impact of poverty and HIV/AIDS in Southern African countries. He has real gravitas when he speaks about his work in Africa, says someone inside the couple's circle, and he is free from Willie, as well as the future king's supposed dominion over that continent, as Harry confessed in his 2023 memoir, Spare. Africa was his thing, Harry said. Archewell also encompasses Meghan's efforts to empower and educate young women, like the 40 by 40 initiative, where for her 40th birthday, she asked 40 well-known friends, such as Melissa McCarthy and then First Lady of Canada, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, to each spend 40 minutes, 40, on Zoom, mentoring a woman returning to the workplace in the wake of the pandemic. Just 40 minutes? Not even a full hour? I mean, I get we're going with the 40 by 40 initiative thing, but it's only two 40s. 40 friends, 40th birthday. Give the mentees an hour. 40 minutes seems a little cheap, little stingy. Okay, continuing. On March 14 of last year, the 4th anniversary of their flight to California, Meghan rejoined Instagram to announce American Riviera Orchard, a home goods and sundries line. The Sussex have announced Meghan's second podcast, though not the title or premise of it. Archewell Productions also really recently produced two high-profile Netflix series, a docu-series called Polo, which premiered December 10, and features the world of Harry's buddy, Nacho Figueras. Actually, that's overselling how much Nacho is in the Polo series. I watched almost every episode of Polo, and there was very little Nacho and very little Harry. I was incredibly disappointed. I honestly thought there was going to be a lot more Harry in the Polo show. I honestly thought it would be a bit of a better produced show, but I suppose if we want to do a Polo review show, that would be for another time. And might be worth it. It was kind of fun to watch it, but the show overall was pretty boring. Okay, and the reality show With Love, Meghan. The latter is a hospitality endeavor that, according to the Netflix promotional language, reimagines the genre of lifestyle programming, blending practical how-tos and candid conversation with friends, new and old. 3 days before her show's scheduled premiere date of January 15, Meghan announced that the series would be pushed to March 4, as we focus on the needs of those impacted by the wildfires in my home state of California. Well, how very generous of them. The couple has been volunteering amid the crisis in Los Angeles and donating to people displaced by the fires, as well as taking in friends who had to evacuate their own homes. Again, how incredibly generous of them. And, well, they've also received a lot of criticism for, oh, what was it? Justine Bateman came out, I think, and was accusing them of disaster tourism or something like that. Was it Meghan McCain also wrote some article about them, but that's sort of her paid gig, I think, with the Daily Mail. But yeah, again, it was like the Uvalde thing all over again. Harry and Meghan were being accused of showing up at a tragedy that they had no actual connection to in order to promote themselves and, you know, get the photo op with looking concerned, the hand on the shoulder of with the victims and that sort of thing. And of course, getting in trouble for bringing along their own cameras to record their acts of generosity. But you know, what can you do? This is, if they show up, they're going to be, they're going to be criticized. I suppose they could have shown up without the cameras, but anyway, continuing the article. They have this naivete and their hopefulness about what's possible in terms of storytelling and good works and all those things, says producer Jane Marie, who collaborated with the couple while they developed audio projects at Archwell and later produced a podcast with Michelle Obama. I wish I had that kind of optimism. Optimism abounded as the couple embarked on their Spotify deal in 2020, both for them and for those who were coming in to help do the work. I thought that I had the role of a lifetime, says a person who worked in media projects, who was a fan going in and eager to make the type of life-changing content Harry and Meghan seemed to want to create. I thought I was going to be besties with Harry and Meghan, and we were going to, run around the world saving people. Is this person 8 years old? Yeah, that is not going to happen. Talk about naivete. That's incredibly naive. Oh, movie of the week in the chat. I'm sorry, I missed you saying, yeah, Justine didn't like them. No, she did not. Okay, continuing. Interest in the couple was unslakable, but it remained to be seen whether they were actually interesting. Beyond Harry's uniquely difficult upbringing and Meghan's years of defending herself from shoddy treatment and racism, whether in the British press or from members of her husband's family. As one former Spotify employee put it, the thing you're escaping is the reason you're compelling. The issues extended into the actual workplace. Terry Wood, an executive vice president at Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Productions, was brought in to be what Meghan would later call her right hand when Archetypes won a People's Choice Award in 2022. The source, familiar with the production of Archetypes, describes Wood's anger, saying that she yelled at Spotify staffers when Meghan changed her mind about episodes. Wood did not respond to VF's request for comment. Excuse me. The source, who worked in media projects, says Meghan's own relationships with employees tended to follow a familiar pattern. She would be warm and effusive at the beginning, engendering an atmosphere of professional camaraderie. When something went poorly, often due to Meghan and Harry's own demands, such as a teaser for Archetypes being released 5 months before the show premiered and before there was any tape to promote, Meghan would become cold and withholding toward the person she perceived to be responsible. The source says it was really, really, really awful, very painful, because she's constantly playing checkers. I'm not even going to say chess, but she's just very aware of where everybody is on her board. And when you are not in, you are to be thrown to the wolves at any given moment. In practice, they say, that manifested as undermining. It's talking behind your back. It's gnawing at your sense of self. Really, like Mean Girls teenager. Marie had a different experience with Meghan. She's just a lovely, genuine person, she said. The person who worked in media projects read stories in the tabloids about Meghan, quote, bullying, unquote, palace aides, and couldn't imagine such behavior actually happened. After working with her, though, this person realized, oh, any given Tuesday this happened. While it beggars belief that Meghan actually shouted at a palace aide, does it though? As has been reported, a person who interacted with her professionally says, you can be yelled at even if somebody doesn't raise their voice. It's funny that people don't differentiate between the energy of being yelled at and literally somebody screaming at you. Okay, well, I understand what they're saying. I get it. And yes, being literally, actually somebody literally screaming at the top of their lungs or what have you, can sometimes be less scary than somebody who, because they're obviously somebody's, over the top, out of control at that point. They're, they've lost it. That's why we call it. They've lost it. I think it's maybe a little more unnerving if somebody is, say, internally losing it, but externally not. They're holding it together, but they're going to get you. Like, that might be the calculating, controlled, seething might be worse than somebody who just actually, sort of vomits out their anger or disappointment. Because often the people who vomit it out, they kind of get it out and then they're done and then they move on. But people who can hold it in, they nurture it and it sustain it. And then it becomes really poisonous and toxic long term. Not that necessarily Meghan did that. No way of knowing. I have not worked personally with Meghan, so not my opinion about her. But again, they're reiterating that. Now, as far as this Vanity Fair article goes, the allegations of bullying, this isn't new. So bringing it back, not that bad of a takedown, I suppose. This article is something of a takedown. It kind of gets worse, but you notice they're going back and forth. They'll say something negative about her, really, really, really awful, very painful, and then they will waffle back to, she's just a lovely, genuine person, which makes this Jane Marie person, and that's her whose quote that is, seem like just an absolute liar. It makes that woman seem like she's just full of it, and she may not be, but it certainly works that way. And then they sort of swing the pendulum back to the bullying again, that, I couldn't imagine that she would have yelled at anyone, but you can yell at someone without yelling them, so I totally believe it. Okay. You notice they give a little sugar and then they give a little vinegar, a little sugar, a little vinegar, back and forth. Okay, continuing with the article. 2 sources say a colleague with ties to archetypes took a leave of absence after working on 3 episodes, then left. Did I skip something? They mentioned Gimlet. Did they mention Gimlet yet? Okay. No. All right. I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly because it is formatted. This is a message board postings, not the actual article. Sometimes the like the photo captions and the quotes that are pulled out of the main text appear. Like the formatting is a little screwed up. So I don't want to read things out of order or read double comments. So I just want to make sure I'm not skipping something. Okay. 2 sources say a colleague with ties to archetypes took a leave of absence after working on 3 episodes, then left Gimlet altogether. Did they explain already in this article that Gimlet was they produced the archetypes? They were like the production, the actual production, not the like overarching production, if that makes sense. Like the literal, we do the recording and stuff. Okay, several others described taking extended breaks from work to escape scrutiny, exiting their job, or undergoing long-term therapy after working with Meghan. The person who I'm laughing, but that's, I mean, horrible if that's what you need. And I can certainly understand. It's not unfamiliar to me that a person could be in an employment situation that you get out of it, and you just, one's head is spinning, and one might need help to understand what exactly they went through. Sometimes the people you get stuck working with are just, incomprehensible. Okay, continuing. The person who interacted professionally with her says, I think if Meghan acknowledged her own shortcomings or personal contributions to situations, rather than staying trapped in a victim narrative, her perception might be better. They added with the soggy laugh of a plebe rendering judgment on the Duchess of Sussex, but who am I to criticize Meghan Markle? She's doing great. That's snarky. It's hard to imagine how someone who seems so earnestly intent on being kind and engaging in world improving, if also brand building, activities, could wind up engaging in revanchism with people so below her in status. A partial answer might be found in an episode of Archetypes in which Meghan interviews Mindy Kaling, who assumed Meghan was popular as a child while attending Immaculate Heart Catholic School in Los Angeles. Meghan tells Kaling, I never had anyone to sit with at lunch. I was always a little bit of a loner and really shy and didn't know where I fit in. And so I was like, okay, well, then I'll become the president of the Multicultural Club and the president of sophomore class and the president of this and French club. And by doing that, I had meetings at lunchtime. So I didn't have to worry about who I would sit with or what I would do because I was always so busy. All right, well, let's take a little bit of a look at that. She was so unpopular in high school that she had no one to sit with at lunch. So to remedy this, she decided, I'll run for the president of every club, and then I'll get elected president, and then I'll have all these meetings to go to, and that will keep me busy and cover up for the fact that I don't have friends. Two things. One, unpopular people do not get voted president of pretty much anything. You certainly don't get voted president of your school class if you're unpopular. It doesn't work that way. And you certainly wouldn't become president of multiple things if she was indeed actually president of these multiple things. I'm taking her at her word. But even if it were that she merely joined all of these extracurricular, clubs and activities to keep busy, to cover up for the fact that she did not have friends, I would think at that point you would make friends through your activities, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it. The other thing I'm looking at here, Meghan is sad and lonely. She doesn't have friends. So if she gets involved with a lot of projects, then she's busy, and then she has the appearance of sociability and friends. Now we look at Meghan. She has a lot of projects. She's an actress. She was a blogger. Now she has a orchard thing, right? Her lifestyle products? I don't know what she's producing. Jams, jellies, what have you. She does podcasts. She does TV shows. She does humanitarian UN United Nations business. She goes and tries to help people who have trouble, like the California wildfire victims. A woman who's lonely, doesn't really have true friends, but has a lot of projects to keep herself busy. I'm sort of seeing a trend here, and it's kind of sad. And maybe this is why Meghan's quote-unquote friends are just a succession of people that she's engaged with projects in, but not really like long-term. Like, does anyone remember, I think her name was Nanaki Priddy? Priddy, not Pretty. Priddy. This was, I think, her high school friend who was like super tight with her. And at the time of, the engagement and the marriage, she was being interviewed a lot because she'd, I think, been cut out of Meghan's life at that point. And so she was a little bitter and kind of, throwing a little like, hey, I used to be the best friend, but I'm not anymore. And, so she talked to the tabloids. Anyway, this is the view that I'm getting of Meghan through this statement that she joined clubs to become president to cover up being friendless, which I don't believe, but okay. I mean, I'm not saying she's lying per se, but it maybe her perception of her lack of popularity is merely that, a perception. Anyway, so to finish up this paragraph, back to the article, it brings to mind Taylor Swift's Mastermind lyrics. No one wanted to play with me as a little kid, so I've been scheming like a criminal ever since to make them love me and make it seem effortless. Well, they just compared Meghan Markle to a criminal, a scheming criminal. Maybe not the most complimentary thing to write in the Vanity Fair article. Okay. Oh, and here we have some more. I guess these are photos from the article that here's Harry and Meghan loveying up in a photo booth. Here's Meghan talking to somebody looking very strong and powerful. Here are Harry and Meghan at, I don't know what, some kind of event. Oh, here it says, Candids from Netflix's Harry and Meghan docuseries. Meghan at a California bookstore in September. Harry and Meghan at an Invictus Games event in 2023. That's this. The gate to their Montecito estate. No wildfire damage here. Let's see. And with Serena Williams at the 2024 ESPY Awards, there's Meghan in white, Harry and Serena in red. And then, yeah. And then the little phone booth, picture booth pictures. Okay, so those are the images. Now back to the article. In other words, Meghan was a good person trying to do good things in spite of, and at times because of, unkind people. The person familiar with the production of archetypes says at least one employee who had a terrible experience got a handwritten thank you note and gift from Meghan. Is it any surprise that a sense of victimhood and righteousness could continue to exist in a person who had been treated so horribly by the press and her husband's family? Not to mention those little B words at Immaculate Heart. That's actually the text of the article. That wasn't my comment. That people whom Meghan may have perceived as enemies or interlopers, members of the loathsome media, or insiders at the palace, or people who actually knew how to make a podcast, or her pitiable father and half-sister selling her secrets and history to tabloids for cash, might have seemed more powerful than her in some way, despite her immense fame and wealth and privilege. And then, whatever happened to them, well, they shouldn't have gotten between Meghan and her good work. As Harry knows, trauma can warp your perspective. And there they go. Oh, movie of the week in the chat, laughing at the crazy shade of the Vanity Fair article. Yes, and then the next paragraph of the article kind of elaborated on what I was saying before, is it really that this is the way things are, or perhaps it's a bit of a skewed perspective. But continuing with the article, Spare, Harry's best-selling and beautifully written by J.R. Moringer memoir, chronicles the prince's lonely former life with MRI-level self-examination, if not always top-tier self-awareness. Harry recounts an anti-poaching trip to Namibia in which he insisted on sleeping outdoors, despite his team telling him, "We just saw proof that there are lions out here, boss." Harry claims everyone with him, including a bodyguard, local police, a ranger, and Namibian soldiers who were all there to protect him, went to bed in their tents or trucks rather than staying up to ensure he wasn't eaten by lions in the night. Okay, I have not actually read a lot of... I read some of Harry Spare, but not the whole thing, and I certainly don't remember this story. Was he actually upset that people did not risk their lives because he wanted to sleep outside in lion-infested Africa? That seems a bit, well, again, warped perspective, but that's funny. No, sleep outside and protect me. I want to sleep on the grass where there are lions. No, absolutely not. To a man, no, we won't. Okay, Harry. Continuing, the book also discusses in great detail Harry's issues with his family, opening on his reunion with now King Charles and Prince William, who, in addition to beloved brother, Harry describes as his arch nemesis, possessing a familiar scowl, these are in quotes, and alarming baldness, that's an amusing insult. Also, I don't know, perhaps at the time the book was written, Harry wasn't, I suppose, as male pattern baldness goes, Harry would not have been as bald as he is now, so maybe he thought it was okay to poke fun at his brother's balding head, but Harry really, it's glass, it's throwing stones when you live in a glass house. And furthermore, if you've seen the male members of the British royal family, well, at least Charles, Philip, William, Harry, there's a lot of balding. I wouldn't think that William's balding would be alarming at all. It would be pretty predictable, but anyway, alarming baldness. It doesn't get more flattering for Willie in the ensuing pages. Yes, do you remember the story of the broken necklace? How Harry claimed he and Willie had a fight in, I think it was the Frogmore in the cottage, and something about a scuffle, and did a dog dish get broken? His necklace got broken. There was something about a dog dish maybe getting spilled. I don't remember. It all seemed very silly. And silly to talk about to the public, tussling with your brother. But anyway, back to the article. At an event in 2023, someone privately asked Harry if he'd heard from his family. He said he hadn't. This person asked Harry if he thought he was going to, and he said he hoped so. That's sort of what made me so sad, the source says. His hope seemed very genuine, and I was just kind of like, oh no. That is sad. The source believed Harry hadn't absorbed the gravity of what it would mean to sell millions of copies of a tell-all book about a famously insular and circumspect family in the middle of a years-long public relations crisis. The power of the written word and the power of the narrative, this person went on. I don't know if that's something he understood while he was doing it. Well, I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't. This is, first of all, he's a member of the British royal family. If they don't know how to handle press, if they don't know how to deal with this sort of thing, you must pick it up by osmosis, I would think, just being in the environment. And furthermore, he's Diana's son. Diana definitely knew how to play a media game, even if she often got, I was going to say, it bit her back, but considering how she died, I suppose, yes. But anyway, I would find it difficult to believe that Harry is that naive about how the media works. But if you're asking me to believe that he's not bright enough to understand the implications of his decisions, that I can believe. And that's also kind of sad, that he didn't have anyone to sort of protect him from himself, but he is a grown man. What can you do? Continuing. In addition to painting Dorian Gray-style personal portraits of family members, in Spare, Harry accuses the offices of his brother, father, and Camilla of briefing the press against Harry to distract from or trade away negative stories about themselves. And that's actually completely believable because they do that all the time. So I believe that. Harry sued the publisher of the Daily Mail for libel for publishing an article in 2022 that said Harry tried to conceal his efforts to obtain taxpayer-funded security, but the prince ultimately dropped the case, and a judge ordered Harry to pay the Mail's publisher nearly £50,000 in legal fees. Harry is currently involved in 2 other lawsuits that further alienate him from his home country and its tabloid media. He is moving forward with an invasion of privacy case against Sun publisher News Group newspapers, which follows a settlement from Mirror Group newspapers for a phone hacking charge. But more isolating is the suit regarding state police protection for him and his family when they are in Britain, which Harry, Meghan, and their older child Archie were stripped of when they left the UK in 2020. There are clear dangers to the family's safety. A person who worked closely with them says strangers take lifts to their house. And in 2023, the couple was involved in what a spokesperson called a, quote, near catastrophic car chase, unquote, with paparazzi. There were no injuries, collisions, or charges filed. Was that the one in New York? I can't remember if that was the one in New York. I don't want to... Here, let's see. Oh, okay, I can do that. I thought it was going to click away from our tab. Yes, this was in New York City. I remember this, and it really did seem like much ado about nothing when you... from May 2023. When you consider... Oh, this is a not great photograph also. That hair's looking sad. His face is looking... He doesn't look comfortable. Well, anyway, yeah, I do remember that, and it seemed like it was a lot of fuss and really not that big of a deal. Perhaps Harry was genuinely thinking it was going to be as bad as, well, his mother's, but it doesn't seem like that's really the case, especially when you consider a car chase taking place in New York City. If you've ever been in Manhattan or any similar city, it's very difficult to get up to a very high rate of speed at most times of the day. Maybe in the middle of the night. Yes, there are definitely avenues that are open that you could build up speed, especially if you disregarded the red lights, the stop lights. Other than that, between traffic and the shortness of the distances between traffic lights, you can't really do much of a... I mean, maybe if you were on like the highways, but for the most part, you're in the streets, in the avenues, in the middle of the island of Manhattan. You're not going to get up to that high rate of a speed that it could be that catastrophic unless not the chase cars, but your own car was doing something illegal, which it should not be. Anyway, and the issue of strangers taking lifts to their house, is Lyft paying for an ad in Vanity Fair? Because are the strangers not taking Ubers? Are they not driving their own vehicles? Are they not getting rent-a-cars? If you're being a tourist and you're going past, I'll go back to show you the entrance to their Montecito estate. If you think you're getting anywhere near these people inside this massive complex, absolutely not. Driving past gates is not going to do anything. Saying that people are driving past your home and that's a threat. People drive past people's home all the time. There are people far more famous who have, inappropriate fans who do inappropriate things, sometimes hopping fences, breaking into homes, that sort of thing. I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift had someone break into her home in Manhattan, things like that. They haven't had any break-ins. They haven't had any, fence vaulters. So I wouldn't say that there are actually any more at threat than anyone else in, a similar situation as they are in terms of celebrity and interest, but perhaps they have some problems that we don't know about. I'm sure they do. Okay, so Continuing, let's see, where did I leave off? Right, the, quote, near catastrophic car chase, at which there were no injuries, collisions, or charges filed. The person who interacted with Harry in 2023 also described a very scary paparazzi situation after employees at the hotel where Harry was staying allegedly tipped off photographers to his presence. And what was so very scary about that? Nevertheless, the High Court in London twice struck down the UK lawsuit. Harry is appealing. According to someone familiar with Harry and Meghan, the legal case was at least part of the reason Harry didn't attend the June wedding of his longtime friend Hugh Grosvenor, Duke of Westminster, who is one of, I guess, the richest Britons in Britain, in addition to being a duke. The Dukes of Westminster, I guess, still owned and I suppose still own a lot of London real estate. So you can imagine how much that is worth. Lots and lots and lots. I feel like the Dukes of Westminster at one point were the largest property owners in London, meaning of London. But I don't know if that's still the case. Continuing. The source says if he'd come back for the event, it could have imperiled his claim that he needs government-funded protection. Well, you were here in May and you were absolutely fine attending a wedding, the source says, imagining the response in court. So I'm sure a lot of the decisions about time in the UK are also being made based on how it looks for the case. Of course, there's also Willie. The source says that after invitations went out, Harry and Grosvenor had a conversation. Vanity Fair has also reported that Harry may not have formally been invited. The source says they discussed Harry's discomfort at the thought of being remired in the familial claustrophobia of Windsor turf. It suddenly becomes all about the brothers, and did they look at each other, and how close were they stood, the source says, which is exactly what happened at Charles's 2023 coronation and their uncle, Lord Robert Fellowes' funeral in August. It sounds like Grosvenor called up Harry and said, look, don't come, and I can't invite you, and you know why, because I'm buddying up to the future King of England, and you're not that guy, so sorry. It's kind of what it sounds like. And Harry would understand. He probably wouldn't be happy about it, but he'd probably understand. I don't mean understand in the I'm okay with it. I mean understand like I understand why this is happening kind of thing. Okay. Continuing. You can imagine the Zapruder footage... Sorry, I'll just start over. You can imagine the Zapruder footage level scrutiny by the press. The source says... They miss Harry, or at least the person they pretended he was in their papers. Ah, a very telling phrase. The media misses the person they pretended he was. They helped him sell a false image, and now that false image is being torn apart by the Harry who tries to be a real Harry, but who is the real Harry? As we will see, he's very good at playing a role. They will discuss this, excuse me, and as we finish this paragraph, you'll see, I think with a lot of the reporters, they like the version of Harry that they helped create, they say, describing how they would reminisce about when Harry would come over and pal around with them. Yes, but he also, when you left, would make fun of you all behind your backs and hated you guys. You know, maybe Harry shouldn't have done that. I don't mean if he wanted to make fun of them and dislike them, that's one thing. But maybe don't be fake and pal around with them. Don't have this weird double, have the cognitive dissonance of, I'm going to pretend to be your friend. You're going to like me for who I pretend to be. And then I'm going to, seethe behind your backs and attack you. Well, if you don't like them, don't be friendly with them, and then you don't have to make fun of them behind their backs. Movie of the week in the chat. Let's see. Harry and Meghan are notorious for planting stories in the press to overshadow the British royal family. Oh, sure, but of course the British royal family have to play their game too. I mean, it's all a game, and in a way, they're lucky to have Harry and Meghan to play off of because it gives them a chance to look better. There's always somebody who can be criticized as being worse. I mean, Kate and William were criticized as being work shy, especially Kate, prior to the arrival of Meghan on the scene, and so much criticism being able to be thrown in Harry's direction and also Meghan's direction. So, I mean, they all do this, and it's not that even the British royal family are monolithic in this. You know, like the king, the queen, they're not exactly fully on the same page, fully on the same team as, say, the Prince and Princess of Wales, meaning William and Kate. It's one of those things where sometimes they all have to work for the betterment of the monarchy, and so they're all on the same side, the same team. That's especially when it's British royal family versus Sussexes. But when there isn't a common enemy, as with so many groups, it falls apart to we're working against one another. And of course, Charles has an ego. He wants to look good. William has his ego. He wants to look good. And so their different camps and offices will also put things out to overshadow one another. It's just, it's just what they do. It's dysfunctional and toxic, but there you go. Movie of the week in the chat also says, he's a vapid English gentleman and people loved him for it. He should have stayed that way. Well, movie of the week, I think he's still a vapid English man. I don't know if you can continue to call Harry a gentleman. And I don't actually think that that's why people loved him. I don't think they loved him for being vapid. I think they loved him because he came across as fun. He came across as, a cool guy to hang out with. English, sure. And gentleman, no. Everyone knew he was a silly boy. Everyone knew about his partying and things like that. And while it might have been not great when he got photographed unclothed partying in Las Vegas, it's one of those things that, the British royal family are so uptight and so, not usually so scandalous and doing things like that, that when something like that happens, it's okay if he does it. Now, if William did it, he's the future king. That would not look good. But Harry can be a little bit of, light entertainment. He can be the fun guy. He can, hang out with kids and relate and that kind of thing. Now he's gotten very serious. He's going to save the world. Well, nobody wants the fun younger brother to turn serious and try to save the world. If anyone's going to, be serious like that, I guess it could be William, but people like the fun guy. And it's kind of funny that I would think that would, you movie of the week say he's a vapid English gentleman. I think it was almost a more American quality, or perceived as an American quality. The informalness, the lightheartedness, the jokiness, the casualness. And that's a wonderful balance, a perfect, balance to his brother having to be so serious. No one wants Harry to be serious, and unfortunately the vapid quality that you've identified makes his attempt at seriousness, it undermines them a lot of the time. At least that's what it seems to me. So continuing with the article, they are so hot for each other, according to a person who worked closely with the couple. Like, you know how you meet those couples where you're like, the way they're looking at each other, I should probably not be here right now. No, I'm not around couples that are so in love that I feel like they need to get a room and I shouldn't be there. I have been around couples where you feel like, ooh, the way they're looking at each other, this could turn nasty. I probably shouldn't be here right now, but it's going to get good, so I'm going to stay. Stay and get popcorn. No, especially couples their age, 40-ish, not usually. But continuing the article, and here we go, Vanity Fair, bringing up exactly what I was just saying earlier. But who is the real Harry now that he's been released from the zoo in which he was raised? By one telling, the person who interacted professionally with Meghan says he's socially marooned beyond his nuclear family. She was upfront about the fact that Harry hadn't made many friends yet, the source says of Meghan's assessment of her husband. The person who worked in media projects with the couple also has a guess. I think Harry doesn't know what he wants because he grew up in a fishbowl, and so he doesn't know what real life really is, they say. I think he probably wants to be left alone and be able to go kiss babies every once in a while, but not have to worry about money. I don't think he wants to be famous the way Meghan wants to be famous. Well, first of all, he already is famous. He was born famous. And yes, in a way that Meghan, I guess, would not want to be because she didn't want to stay and do the royal thing. But why he wants to be famous, well, no. If he doesn't want to be famous the way Meghan wants to be famous, it really boggles my mind why he ended up marrying her if they had such different goals. And if he wanted to be left alone and be able to go kiss babies once in a while but not have to worry about money, well, he already had that. That's what he had being a prince. He could have had a great private life, played his polo, done whatever he wanted behind closed doors, and just show up once in a while, kiss a few babies, shake a few hands, smile and wave, and everything's taken care of for him. What more did he want? What more did he need? I don't think the poor boy knows. And that's sad, because he's too old to be this confused. Continuing. Harry and Meghan are, in the estimation of everyone Vanity Fair spoke with, deeply in love. Oh, I said that already. See, this is what I meant about the formatting and being redundant. Okay. They should not be here. Okay, I should probably not be here right now. When Harry is solo, the person inside the couple's circle says, he's very personable. He's very at ease with people. Quite like Diana. He just has this way of making people feel very comfortable. When he's in public with Meghan, there is a circus, the source says. He's so protective of her because people are so nasty to her. It's a whole different experience. Harry has explicitly drawn parallels between his wife and his late mother. My deepest fear is history repeating itself, Harry wrote in a 2019 statement about Meghan's treatment by the press. I've seen what happens when someone I love is commoditized to the point that they are no longer treated or seen as a real person. I lost my mother, and now I watch my wife falling victim to the same powerful forces. Well, he really doesn't understand much because, unfortunately, when you're an actor, you must commoditize yourself. That's how it works. And the industry does not see or treat you as a real person. You are an object. You are a thing. That is it. You look a certain way, you sound a certain way, you behave a certain way. They don't see you as a human being. They don't need you as a human being. And they don't care about you as a human being. And that's the business. How Harry didn't understand that, or how Meghan didn't make clear to him that that's how that goes, it boggles my mind how he would not have known this already. It really is confusing. I don't believe he's lying, but it is so very incredibly hard for me to believe that somebody could be this blind. Okay, continuing with the article. While Harry is vigilant about Meghan's safety, the person who worked closely with them says Meghan's role in their dynamic is caregiver and facilitator. She's the one who makes things happen. Pre-Meghan, says the person familiar with the couple, Harry would just pop in to the palace press office, ask a few questions, and leave like he was a little bored, but also very keen. It's almost impossible to imagine today's Harry willingly engaging with the media in search of purpose. The source who worked with Harry and Meghan says, I can picture him meeting Meghan and being just a deep breath of I've been so exhausted and you make everything so easy. I don't want to be oh, it's an Oedipus thing or whatever, but it kind of feels like she's reparenting him in a way. Well, okay, that again, that is believable. I can believe that. He lost his mother at a very young age. First, kind of in the separation that his parents went through, and the divorce, and then she actually left life, and his life, her life, was completely gone. And as if you were here for our stream, I believe it was 2 streams ago or 3 streams ago, maybe. If I can remember the title, I will have to link it in the description. It was the death of the stepson of royal nanny Tiggy Legge-Bourke Pettifer. We discussed mostly Tiggy, the former nanny to Princes William and Harry, and touched a bit on how she was brought in after Diana and Charles separated to be a companion of sorts. Charles brought her in. She didn't like being called a nanny. She said she was more of a companion, but she clearly was there to be a bit of a babysitter, and she would do things like let Harry take pot shots at bunny rabbits from the Range Rover window when he was a teenager. And she and her brother, Tiggy and her brother, got in trouble because they let the princes abseil down a Welsh, what was it? Like an old mine, like a cliff face, basically, without safety gear, without helmets. I mean, without helmets to protect the heads of the future King of England and the spare. It was a bit much. It was a bit crazy that would be allowed, but it was pretty obvious that Tiggy was there to sort of, I guess, control the chaos, she was the babysitter who will let you drink, probably not the best babysitter if in that sense. It doesn't seem as though Harry was given a lot of supervision, a lot of good parental supervision after the separation of his parents. And I think we're seeing what happens to that. These are the consequences. But yeah, I'm a little confused by the "I've been so exhausted, you make everything so easy" comment, because it seems as though everything would have been done for Harry. All he had to do was pop into the palace press office and then go show up at whatever event. I don't know how that's exhausting. It sounds like maybe he was just lonely. And unfortunately, unlike Meghan at school, he didn't have any extracurricular activities to go run to be president of. But he does have Sentebale, and he does have Invictus Games. So why couldn't he just throw himself into that? I really don't understand what it was that, other than, a love partner to share his life with. I'm not really sure why he, quote unquote, needed Meghan for this escape from something that didn't actually seem like that much of a problem. Perhaps I'm confused. I am confused, but anyway. Continuing with the article. It's easy to imagine a folie deux emerging from the singular blend of circumstances, and lovely, equating Harry and Meghan to the Joker and Harley Quinn. Who would be whom? Which would be which? And come to think of it, the content of that new Joker movie, that's a bit of a scary metaphor. But actually, that's a terrifying metaphor when I think about the new Joker movie, the Folie Deux movie, the one with Lady Gaga. I haven't seen this one, but I've heard of the plot. And if you know the plot, which is a little... Well, the things that happened to Joaquin Phoenix's Joker character, a little extreme. I don't want to mention them, but if you're familiar with how that played out and what ended up happening, if I'm remembering correctly, because as I said, I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard of it, what ended up happening at the end with those two characters, if you substituted Harry for the Joker, or the, Arthur Dent? That's Joaquin Phoenix's character name, right? And the Harley Quinn character? Whoa, that's a little scary. But okay, let's continue the article. It's easy to imagine a folie à deux emerging from the singular blend of circumstances, a need to believe in each other and the primacy of their relationship in the face of shared trauma and the real obstacles they encountered as they idealistically endeavored to break the wheel, while occasionally breaking the spirits of those tasked with executing their shared vision. Quote, "You don't," unquote, "tell them no," the person who worked in the couple's media projects said. "I left because I couldn't live with myself anymore." That's rough. Movie of the Week in the chat says, "You're remembering correctly." Well, thank you. Thank you for confirming my memory of the Joker movie plot. Okay. A good memory for something I've never seen. All right, continuing. This intra-couple permission to stray from other people's realities may have led to some of the points of contention that people bring up when questioning Meghan's fidelity to emotional truth above literal truth. I like qualifying the term truth is funny. Her assertions that she neither Googled Prince Harry nor looked up the etiquette for meeting the Queen of England and didn't know she was supposed to curtsy until the ride over. Meghan is the type of woman who would check a menu out online before going to a restaurant to pick what she was going to eat, says Tom Fitzgerald, a fashion and cultural commentator who, with his husband Lorenzo Marquez, comprise the brand Tom and Lorenzo. Well, hey, what a great ad for them. A resident of Montecito who ate lunch in the same restaurant as Meghan said the server told her Meghan had called ahead to ask about the privacy of the seating arrangement. So the idea that she didn't know that she was supposed to curtsy for the Queen, I just didn't find it particularly believable because, based on everything she ever told us about herself, I cannot imagine that she went into meeting the royal family completely cold, with no research whatsoever. Fitzgerald also points to Meghan's repeated claims that she was forced to wear neutrals during her time in the palace in order to avoid upstaging or competing with Queen Elizabeth and senior members of the family, noting that Meghan's wardrobe is now primarily composed of that palette. And notice here, Vanity Fair is using Tom Fitzgerald of Tom and Lorenzo to explicate things that have been discussed online for literally years on message boards, chat groups, what have you, comment sections on YouTube videos. What is that? Sorry, I was reading Movie of the Week in the chat. Are you saying Movie of the Week in the chat don't make you a bad person to checking out a menu online? I think the reason why Tom is mentioning this is because it might be a normal thing to check out a menu online before you go to a restaurant just to see what they have on offer. But I think he's suggesting that Meghan is checking the menu to make her choice of what she is going to have before she even gets to the restaurant, which, I mean, one could do that if you saw something and went, ooh, that looks good, I'm going to have that when I go. Sure, but to do it as like, I don't know, you're scoping things out ahead of time that you can't just go open a menu and pick a meal, I don't know. Yes, about the menu, okay. I think the suggestion is that she is such a... she's pre-planning everything. She's calculating, not leaving things up to chance, that she's not that kind of a person, which that could be a good quality. But in this sense, obviously, they're making it seem like a very bad quality. Okay, continuing. A Royals reporter, I wonder who, believes that Meghan assumed her husband's vision rather than researching the job of being a royal, and the reporter has a more positive view of the Folie. Oh, that's such a good idea for a successful marriage, the reporter says. It's a terrible idea for a job, but if you're joining this big network of people, you've got to see this through your husband's eyes. Be your husband's advocate in it. And it's no wonder this relationship works. even if the family business part of it fell apart. Well, I would actually disagree. I think that if you're joining your husband in this big network of people, yes, you should see it through his eyes. And yes, of course, you should be your husband's advocate. But if your husband is wrong about something, he kind of needs you to check him and, calm him down and maybe help him deal with the situation rather than just jump on board if he has a bad, if he's not handling it well, and vice versa. I'm not trying to be sexist here and say that it's the woman's or the wife's job to do this for her husband. It's both. You're both there to keep an eye on one another, regardless of what your relationship is. You should, check yourself before you wreck yourself. If you can't trust your partner in life to help you keep your, what under control, then who can you trust? That's part of it, right? Part of the job of a marriage, I would assume. I would hope. Okay, continuing. It's a charming, if Freudian dynamic, ouch, a husband and wife who organize each other's lives and well-being, who flirt and hold hands and want the world to be a better place, even to the exclusion of evidence that suggests their well-meaning way of disrupting institutions is not always the best approach. That instinct to do things as Harry and Meghan believe they should be done, rather than how they are typically accomplished, was exacerbated during their time as senior working royals. It led to conflict with Harry's family and palace staff, the reporter says, because Harry doesn't understand himself, doesn't understand a monarchy. His family didn't do a very good job of inculcating him into the family legend, partially because he didn't care, partially because he was just kind of abandoned at the age of 8. And to be clear, Harry was not 8 years old when Diana died. He was 8 when his parents separated. So Vanity Fair is saying that he was abandoned when his parents separated, which is an interesting take. But it's very hard for me to believe that Harry couldn't understand a monarchy, because of course he was raised in a monarchy, but also he has the same ability to ask questions as the rest of us. He has the same ability to say Google as the rest of us. If he didn't care, well, I guess at some point that becomes on him. But I would tend to agree. It does seem that the family didn't do the best job. My knowledge of the British royal family is that they generally don't do a very good job raising the people in their family. And yes, one's innate qualities seems to help make or break one's character in that situation. So continuing, and actually this Vanity Fair article, as negative as it is against Meghan and Harry, it's actually made me feel much more sorry for Harry and his situation than I had before. And I am sympathetic to his situation, but he comes across as a much more sad and pathetic individual from this article, which a more harshly critical and more negative article probably couldn't elicit quite as much sympathy from me as this one, with its sort of balance of positives and negatives. Anyway, what do you think about this article? What do you think about Vanity Fair and their turn? Is there a reason that Vanity Fair has suddenly decided to turn on Harry and Meghan after giving them so much positive publicity, so much support over the past 5, I guess it's actually 5, is it 5+ years? 5 years since the marriage, but they've been together longer than that. Or it was 5 years rather since they left the monarchy. Does it have to do with, well, today in the USA, it's Inauguration Day in the USA. There is a new president. Well, he's an old president, but a new president. Is it the title shift? So many people who were formerly one way seem to be shifting in another direction since we've had this changeover in the White House. Is it that trend continuing? Is there something different from that, more than that? What do you think? We've been streaming so far almost an hour and a half about Meghan and Harry, reading the cover story of the, well, I guess it's current. It will be the February 2025 issue of Vanity Fair magazine. And this is their cover story. I will go back and show you the cover image up here. We are not reading this on vanityfair.com because this article is behind a paywall. But fortunately, user, let's see, I will give credit where credit is due. Itgirl_29 on lipstickalley.com has been kind enough to copy and paste the article in its entirety, and we have been reading through that article. We are, I believe, about halfway through the article, and there is more to come, but I am going to take a little break, refill my glass of water, and stretch. And if you have been here the whole time, I would recommend that you do the same, and then we will be back and we will continue reading this Vanity Fair article. If you are here for the first time, or if you are a returning listener/viewer, I invite you to hit the like button and go ahead and subscribe. If you are joining the stream late, I would suggest that you can scrub backward in the using your, the play bar. You can go back and watch from the beginning and then catch up later. But I am going to take a brief about 10, no more than 15-minute break, refill my water, take a little stretch, and then we will be back finishing this article and then looking at some of the reactions to the article. This is French Dip Empire. I am the Empress, and we will be back reading the Vanity Fair cover story on Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, in just a little bit. Hello, 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 and we are back. This is Friendship Empire. I am the Empress, and we are reading through the Vanity Fair cover story on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Now, continuing where we left off. However, the couple's regal charisma, while effortlessly changing the world, has been showcased to great effect on their most successful reimagining of monarchy, ex-Markle, Harry and Meghan's common royal tours to Nigeria in May and Colombia in August. Invictus Games, for sure, is a very clear product, a brand, an organization that Harry spent a decade building, which is why, in many ways, I think the Nigerian tour worked, says Elaine Louis, the celebrity commentator behind Lainey Gossip. When they appeared together in non-Invictus circumstances, that's when people are like, I'm not really clear what they're representing here. That's contrasted with an actual royal tour when individuals are acting on behalf of the sovereignty and its various causes, or as Louis points to, an independent actor like Angelina Jolie, who went to places like Afghanistan and Ukraine with the backing of the United Nations Refugee Agency. In September, Harry appeared in front of a small group at the United Nations in New York to highlight issues in Lesotho, one of the countries where his charity, Sentabale, focuses its efforts. Louis says she could leverage the history and the reputation of a very established philanthropic organization to say, hey, I'm lending my celebrity to this cause, and in raising this awareness, we can actually attach the effect or the results to the UNHCR. With the gauzier parts of Meghan and Harry's tours, what Harry called the reasons to meet the people at the heart of our work, Louis says the question is, how are they helping anyone? And how is Archewell distinguishing itself from any other foundation? After raising more than $13 million in 2021, according to public disclosure forms, the charity grossed $2 million in 2022. The nonprofit has not yet shared its 2023 or 2024 revenue. Yes, it has them as spokespeople, Louis says, but they haven't had yet. Because it's still quite new, a track record of being able to make philanthropic achievements independent of the palace. Now, this is kind of funny because I don't follow Lainey Gossip, excuse me, but I am definitely familiar with Lainey Gossip, and I thought that Lainey Gossip was a pro-Sussex media outlet. I thought that they were supportive of Harry and Meghan. So if Lainey Gossip is willing to go on record criticizing the Sussexes, that is actually mildly surprising to me. Although, I don't know, perhaps that has been going on for a while. Because as I said, I've not been following the Sussexes as closely as I once had, or as closely as others do. But yeah, I thought Lainey Gossip was a pro-Sussex mouthpiece, but I guess not any longer. Okay, continuing. How complete that independence is another point that rankles people about Meghan and Harry. If you still use a title and descend upon Commonwealth or developing countries and let little girls curtsy to you, as one did to Meghan in Colombia, it doesn't seem like you've totally left the monarchy behind. It also doesn't give you a lot of room to critique it. The Netflix docu-series Harry and Meghan litigates in painstaking detail Harry's and Meghan's mental health declines as she was bullied, at the very least in sight of, and by many accounts at the behest of, an imperialist establishment. Yet this doesn't seem to sour them to the idea of participating in a hereditary bloodline. In the doc, Harry says that during their last week as working senior royals, the couple, ruing the circumstances of their exit, kept telling each other, "We would have carried on doing this for the rest of our lives." When Charles ascended the throne after Elizabeth's death, the couple's children became Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. Some people familiar with the production of Archetypes and Harry's book tour said they were instructed to address the couple as Sir or Ma'am, though the request was dropped in one instance after the person pushed back. Other people say they were encouraged by Harry and Meghan to call them by their first names. I could see that both being true, that staff say to other staff, call them, sir or ma'am, and then you actually meet them and you're like, "Oh, hello, sir," or "Hello, ma'am," and they're like, "Oh, please, call me Harry, call me Meghan." I could see that being a thing. I think ultimately it's cachet and sets them apart as different and special, the source familiar with the couple says. In the U.S., success, money, fame, all of that stuff exists out here. But a blood title, it's few and far between. Many members of Meghan's current inner circle, which includes Kaling, that was Mindy Kaling, who was mentioned before I took the break, Figueres' wife, socialite Delphina Blaquier, Tracy Robbins, the fashion designer and wife of Paramount Global co-CEO Brian Robbins. Oh, yeah, they have 3 of them now, I believe. And Brian Robbins, he's an interesting guy. He was an actor. He was on the old, I think it was 1980s sitcom, Head of the Class. And he went with his fellow Head of the Class co-star to become very powerful at Nickelodeon. If you're familiar with Dan Schneider, that is Brian Robbins' old co-star, and I thought they were friends. They certainly worked together to produce a lot of that hit Nickelodeon television that has become very controversial for reasons that we're not going to discuss on this stream. If you're familiar, if you know, you know. And I try to be careful who I'm friends with. That's a friendship that would bother me, but maybe they know, maybe Harry and Meghan know something I don't. Continuing with the article. And parenting influencer and activist Kelly McKee Zajfen, I don't know, are basically living by the rules of American aristocracy, according to Louis. They stay behind the scenes, wield their power quietly, and look down on people who are very public, too thirsty. Wait, you're trying to tell me that the members of Meghan's inner circle prefer to stay behind the scenes, wielding their power quietly, and look down on people who are too public and too thirsty? Right. Well, I mean, first of all, Mindy Kaling is an actress. She's not a behind the scenes, even though she does work behind the scenes as, a writer, a producer, whatnot. She's a very public figure. She's very public. And as for thirsty, well, she certainly talked about her relationship with her ex, her children that were not adopted, IVF or something like that. She has like a mystery baby daddy donor, I think. I think she's also gotten publicity off of weight loss. She's gotten publicity off of a lot of topics that don't have anything to do with her acting or her writing or her work in television. But they don't like people who are very public or too thirsty, and they prefer to wield their power quietly and behind the scenes. Okay. Continuing the article. On the other hand, all of the aforementioned are slated to appear on With Love, Meghan, which is her new show. A Black Studies scholar, who is also an African-American woman, noted the way racism is discussed in Harry and Meghan as the one-off actions of Princess Michael of Kent wearing a blackamoor brooch to a brunch where Meghan was present, or the distant colonialism that still furnishes the duchies of Cornwall and Lancaster, and the jewels in the family's tiaras, or Harry saying that the royal family merely had, quote, unconscious bias, unquote. It's a very common discursive move, the scholar says, locating racism in individual bad actors, or locating it in the past, Queen Elizabeth becomes a kindly grandmother. She's in the back of a car or her carriage under a blanket. There's that story, which is really kind of sweet, that Meghan tells in the documentary. Yes, and that was the story about Meghan making a public appearance with the late Queen Elizabeth II, and they were in the back of, again, a car or a carriage. I thought it was a car. And supposedly the Queen offered to share her blanket with Meghan. And that was the Queen being kind to Meghan. That was the story. Okay. But it can't connect that with the larger ideology of England, and thereby Queen Elizabeth being like, we are the natural rulers of the world, and that includes the segregation of people of color. The cultural critic says this framing makes it so Meghan and Harry can tell the story of being victims of the system, but it's all about them being disenfranchised from whiteness and white privilege. Okay, so if I'm translating this correctly, Vanity Fair is saying that one of the problems with Meghan and Harry, who have been accused of being woke, is that they're not actually angry about the imperialist system of the monarchy. They're just angry that they don't get to be a part of it in the way that they want. They don't get to enjoy the privilege of that negative system. So that's, again, kind of interesting that Vanity Fair is sort of using the quote-unquote woke stick to hit the quote-unquote woke couple. I wouldn't think that Vanity Fair would take that turn, but they have, and that's a curious change in the coverage of the Sussexes. So continuing with the article. The couple repeatedly expressed frustration in Harry and Meghan that Meghan wasn't tapped as an asset for upholding the Crown's international interests in an era where Prince William was tasked with expressing profound sorrow at the appalling atrocity of slavery during a tour to Jamaica. And yes, that tour to Jamaica went over like a lead balloon. As historian David Olusoga says in the docuseries, part of what makes the inability of the palace to defend Meghan an even bigger disaster is that the center of the argument for the monarchy in this country is the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is 2.5 billion, mainly black and brown people. Here was a woman who looked like most of the people in the Commonwealth. Harry speaks shortly after and says the palace and its denizens have already missed an enormous opportunity with my wife and how far that would go globally. That's a bit of a cynical take. Not that that's not, not that he's wrong, but it is a bit a cynical take. But she'd be such a good asset. Like, you're not supposed to be thinking about that. You're supposed to be thinking about how much you love this wonderful woman. But this is the man who didn't want to commoditize the woman he loved, and yet, but she'd be such a good brand ambassador for the royal family and the Commonwealth. It seems a little cynical, but I get it. He wants to pitch the good points of his wife, like he did to, who was it, Bob Iger, that she'd be so good at voiceover for Disney. Whatever happened with that elephant documentary? I can't remember now. Continuing the article, the source familiar with the couple says it's important to note that Harry isn't an anti-monarchist. He just didn't like the way things were run within the institution, he says. His issues are about people and behaviors, not tradition. And in that sense, he takes after his mother, Diana, who supposedly did not want to destroy the monarchy. She just wanted it, I suppose, to tip more in the favor of what she wanted. I mean, understandable, don't they all? Continuing. The source, who is also a person of color, defends Meghan's right to want a piece of the empire for herself. If I was in the same position and I was treated the way I was by the institution, it wouldn't stop me from still feeling that that title is mine and deserved, they say. If anything, it would feel like you're giving in to the pressure to exclude you in the first place. So actually, it would probably make me want it even more. Damn well I'm going to slap it on my kids' names too. I suppose that's one way of looking at it. I also suppose that you could look at it and say, well, is this a thing that's actually worth having? If everyone who's been named a prince or a princess has been this, awful imperialist tool, then perhaps you would not want your children to bear those titles, but I don't know. Speaking as an empress, well, I don't really have a problem with it, but when you live in the French dip empire, you don't really have to worry too much about what you've done, since it's a fictional empire and there are no victims of imperialism in this empire. Unless you're feeling oppressed, listeners out there. I hope not. Continuing with the article. Natalie Portman, Jeff Bridges, John Carradine, Kirk and Michael Douglas, Jonathan Winters, Gwyneth Paltrow, Adam Levine, Jimmy Connors, T.C. Boyle, Leonardo DiCaprio, Neil Young and Daryl Hannah, who are a couple, by the way, Michael Keaton, and of course, Oprah, are among the many celebrities who have peacefully coexisted with other locals in Montecito, an unincorporated part of Santa Barbara County, when a Montecitans labradoodle ran up to a child and licked their ice cream. The kid's father, Kardashian affiliate Scott Disick, affiliate, I like that title, ran up to the pet owner with concern, not because he was upset that the cone was ruined, but to reassure the person that the ice cream was vegan and wouldn't upset the dog's stomach. Katy Perry has, per usual, had some legal real estate issues, and Ellen DeGeneres has become unpopular for her immaculate, usually off-market flips that have supposedly driven house prices up. I think everyone, including the A-list celebs, would prefer that it's not on the map like it is, the Montecitan says. It's a place where no one would ever bother a famous person, beyond saying hello at the coffee shop, as they would to anyone else. One resident says Montecito's defining characteristics are quiet and neighborliness. The prince and the starlet, as the Montecitan calls her. Oh, I like that, the starlet. Was that not what Prince Philip supposedly referred to Meghan as Harry's starlet, which is rather insulting. She's not a young woman. And heck, she was number 6 on the call sheet at Suits, or so I've been told. The prince and the starlet, as the Montecitan calls her, have become local villains, according to several people who spoke with Vanity Fair. Okay, Vanity Fair is now officially calling the Sussexes villains. We really have turned. It's a complete heel turn now. They attribute the increase in housing prices to them as much as DeGeneres, and point to out-of-towners coming in, driving too fast, and taking up all the street parking by local trails, like the one Meghan was photographed hiking on while Harry was in the UK for Charles's coronation. You can't just walk into Lucky's for dinner anymore. While the Montecitan says neither he nor his friends have ever met the couple, 2 others mentioned Harry biking in town. They popped up in the video for DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi's vow renewal, and the Montecitan saw photos of Harry playing polo at a nearby field, which will also be featured in Harry's Netflix docuseries. Not enough, as I said, there was not nearly enough Harry in the polo docuseries. Meghan's Netflix project was filmed at a house near theirs. American Riviera Orchard, which on Instagram has a logo styled with a royal-looking crest and written in Meghan's perfect calligraphy, and is known internally as ARO, is located in Montecito. Though an 1898 book published by the Southern Pacific Company Rail Line states, the Montecito is known as the American Riviera. Today, that honor is understood to belong to Santa Barbara. No one Vanity Fair spoke with had ever heard Montecito referred to by the name. It's such a kind of hucksterism, one resident says. It's just finding every way she can to monetize something. You know, when they're talking about one Montecitan, one resident, they're not naming them. It's kind of funny I'm imagining that list of people who live in Montecito, and I'm just in my head attributing the quotes like, that was Oprah, that was Oprah. Oprah was saying, it's such hucksterism. She's trying to put her name on everything, said the woman who named her television show and her magazine after herself. Who do you think what Natalie Portman quote can we attribute? Which quote can we attribute to Natalie Portman? You tell me, who do you like to think is dropping these quotes? The actual celebs or just random non-famous Montecitans? I'm imagining that it's, like Michael Keaton doing a Batman voice saying these things. Okay, let's continue. Where did I leave off? And in doing so, bringing more attention to the place where the Sussexes say they want to be left alone. I still think they're the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet, the Montecitan says. Okay, let's imagine that's Neil Young saying this. They moved away from England to get away from the scrutiny of the press, and all they do is try and get in the press in the United States. Louis, that's Lainey Gossip, says the most common criticism she hears about Meghan, though she notes it's true of Harry as well, is you can't cherry pick the good parts and leave out the bad parts of fame. However, she points out, all celebrities do this. Yeah, it's so true. Don't take photos of me. Oh, but here, let me step out conveniently and get papped. Only give me good reviews of my movie or my album. And if you don't like my music, I'm going to post on Instagram that you're so shitty as a reviewer. Oh, well, sorry. I should have cleaned up the language perhaps, but I said it quickly, so it's okay, right? We're all adults here, yes? Okay, great. Continuing. Whether American Riviera Orchard will be well received, or received at all, at least in name, remains to be seen. On August 31, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office rejected the trademark application. Registration is refused because the applied for mark is primarily geographically descriptive. The response read, in other words, you can't claim a place. And then it says, in parentheses, tell that to Queen Victoria. And I'm not quite sure what that means. It's a link to museumofbritishcolonialism.org. I'm going to skip that. Continuing. The same day, according to the New York Post, the office reportedly received a complaint from storied pear purveyor Harry and David, nice alliteration, pear purveyor, Harry and David regarding the similarity in name to its Royal Riviera line, more alliteration. As far as the substance of the brand, Louis says Meghan's first lifestyle effort, the Tig, was popular in Louis' circle in Toronto, while Meghan was filming Suits there. However, American Riviera Orchard, to me, is giving 2014. It's not giving 2024, she says. Fame arrests you at the moment it arrives. And I wonder if that is your health and wellness lifestyle version of that, where she had to suspend the Tig and quit it the moment that she became Harry's girlfriend, then fiancé, and then his wife. American Riviera Orchard is maybe picking up from where the Tig left off. Okay, ouch, that's a burn. That's a sick burn. Giving 2014, not 2024. Ouch. And again, I thought Lainey Gossip had been pro-Sussex, but either something has changed or, admittedly, I haven't been following Lainey Gossip and her Sussex coverage, but I could have sworn that she was pro-Sussex at the beginning of their relationship and into their marriage, or even after their wedding. But I don't know. Maybe like Vanity Fair, Lainey Gossip got the message that it's time to turn. Continuing. The source, familiar with the couple, says, I think there's one thing that no one could take away from Meghan is how hard she works, how much effort goes into everything that she does. Ultimately, that's all she needs. And I think that's why American Riviera Orchard probably will be a massive success. Even if in 2 years' time it doesn't exist anymore and she's on to the next, it will have that moment. There will be no way that you can say that it wasn't successful. Yeah, I'm pressing X to doubt that one, but we shall see. I guess. Do you actually think American Riviera Orchard products will be hitting what? The internet? Store shelves? What do you think? If you have an opinion, let me know in the chat or post it in the comments under the on the actual video here, the stream. What do you think? Do you think that we will ever see an American Riviera Orchard product in stores? Will you have it? Would you buy it? Would you buy Harry and Meghan stuff? Would you? Would you give it as a gift? Let me know. I don't think I would, but that's just me. Continuing. A few years ago. Oh, this is the good one. Here we go. This is the bombshell. A few years ago, a rumor began circulating around the book world about another prospective project for Meghan. This story, which a person with knowledge confirms the broad details of, was that Meghan's team had a conversation with a publishing house to gauge interest in the idea for a potential book, the concept for which there was no written or formal proposal was post-divorce, not a general book on life after marital disillusion, or one about Meghan's past experience. She was married to producer Trevor Engelson from 2011 to 2014. This book, this notion of a book really, might center on a post-Harry divorce. Not that there was actually one in the works, just if this a priori divorce ever came to be, would this publisher theoretically be interested in a book that took place in its aftermath? Another source with knowledge says, if that's true to any degree, she would have been approached and not vice versa. No offer was ever made, and no manuscript was produced. After all, there was no divorce. Ooh, not yet though, anyway. The source familiar with the couple says, Meghan's metabolism for campaigns that she can move on from, archetypes, the ephemeral 40 by 40 mentorship program, the forthcoming lifestyle line and show, the wisp of a possible book about a divorce that might never happen, are part of why she's better suited to celebrity outside the palace. The royals don't work like that, the source says. How many years has Kate been talking about early childhood development? Like 11 now? 12? We still haven't really seen anything. Princess Catherine launched Shaping Up, a campaign focused on increasing public understanding of the crucial importance of the first 5 years of a child's life. In that time, Meghan has gone from star of a syndicated cable series to paradigm-changing princess to her husband's conduit out of royal life to the founder of a hybrid charity Hollywood startup. She has earned as much faith in her own force of will as a sovereign might have from believing that they were anointed by God to lead. As for what she'll do with that power, look at what it means for her to make the world a better place, which she and Harry genuinely seem to want to do. Jamila Jamil, Chrissy Teigen, and Omid Scobie, the author of Finding Freedom, about Harry and Meghan's time in and departure from royal life, and Endgame, about the ensuing years within the Windsor dynasty, have all publicly discussed Meghan unexpectedly reaching out during difficult times in their lives and offering solace, even though they weren't close. Louise says it as something Meghan took from her royal years, just as Harry has taken his impeccable manners and the ability to patronize the F out of a charity. That's what they do, Louise says. They bless you with their royalness, and that's the gift. It's not like Princess Diana was ever best friends with all the people that she visited in the hospital. I think that they don't know what change the world means, says the person who worked in media projects. They want to be people who are looked at as people who want to change the world. Maybe that's why Meghan has continued on Nick News, in the Tig, on panels, on archetypes, in Columbia in August, to bring up the story of writing a letter to Procter & Gamble about a sexist soap ad, taking credit for them changing the spot so that it no longer suggested women should be the ones doing dishes. Procter & Gamble declined many requests from Vanity Fair to confirm that Meghan was the impetus for the switch. And in 2021, the company partnered with Archewell with the goal of elevating the voices of adolescent girls to ensure their point of view and lived experience is heard at the tables where decisions are made. The idea of adolescent and lived experience is, if you're adolescent, you don't have very much lived experience, but I suppose it still counts. Anyway, continuing. Whether or not Meghan's letter is what prompted the change, the fact that more than 30 years later she continues to speak up about having spoken up suggests it's the kind of mission she aspires to. Marie, who has worked with many celebrities, says of the Sussexes' aspirations, "I think it's actually better than where most people start out." Well, she's looking on the bright side. To point out the modesty of that world bettering feels like contributing to the essential... What did I just say? Okay, to point out the modesty of that world bettering feels like contributing to the essential problem of Harry and Meghan. No matter what they do, they just can't win. If, I guess, you don't count the overwhelming portion of their beautiful lives that exists outside of Daily Mail headlines and blog comment sections. If Harry's burden is the soft oppression of no expectations, Meghan's might be the opposite, the betrayal of not living up to an unachievable ideal. I think the whole world was waiting for her to be that person, and then she never jumped. The source, who worked in media, says. Diana walked amongst landmines. Meghan couldn't even say the word slut. You know, I think the formatting got messed up on this. As there was a section that we did not get. One second. Because there was that part about Gimlet. And where was it? I'm looking for it. The part about Gimlet. Because I did read this before. And I could have sworn there was a section. Let me find it. Let me go over here. I have another copy of this. And one second. I have this archived in case anything got pulled down. And now I'm going to check it because something did disappear. Yeah, okay. And if we look, this is Lipstick Alley. This is lipstickalley.com, the message board where the article was published. And here a commenter says, it's surprising that Elaine Louis wasn't that complimentary of them. She's favored them for years, so that's an interesting shift. That's Lainey Gossip. So, yeah, Lainey Gossip apparently did what used to be pro-Sussex and now is anti-Sussex. And let me, here it is. Here it is. Okay, this is the segment that somehow disappeared from that other post. Okay, so let's go back and we'll read this segment. So here we go. Okay. So picking up from the thing you're escaping is the reason you're compelling. Okay. Those stories would be meted out in different media. Breathless reports of $20 million Penguin Random House contract, of a $20 million Penguin Random House contract, Spare, the book, and $100 million partnership with Netflix, the Harry and Meghan show. According to a representative for Netflix, we don't disclose our financial deals with talent, but I can confirm to you on the record that the $100 million figure is not correct. On the August 2022 cover of The Cut, Meghan did to promote her first and only Spotify podcast, Archetypes, she said, "I'm like so excited to talk. And it's like I'm not finding my voice. I've had my voice for a long time, but being able to use it." When repeatedly asked by the interviewer what she wanted to say with her newly free voice, Meghan demurred, "I have a lot to say until I don't. Do you like that? Sometimes, as they say, the silent part is still part of the song," she said, noting, "I've never had to sign anything that restricts me from talking. I can talk about my whole experience and make a choice not to." Okay, that kind of sounds like a threat, but I guess you could read into it or not, as you wish. One of the people who spoke with VF for this story says they signed a non-disclosure agreement to be employed by Harry and Meghan. A person who worked closely with the couple and loves them says, "I have no idea what Harry's interests are beyond polo. No clue what his inner life is like." The development process was challenging. The former Spotify employee says, "They had this idea to do a podcast because they knew celebrities did them." A category differentiated between celebrities who get a lot of money to begin podcasting, like Harry and Meghan, and celebrities who get large deals after proving themselves to be capable podcasters, like Smartless's Will Arnett, Sean Hayes, and Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman, whose sister Justine then came out and criticized the Sussexes. The former Spotify employee says Harry and Meghan didn't do what celebrities do on podcasts, which is turn on the mic and talk. They wanted a big theme that would explain the world, but they had no ideas. Someone who worked closely with them on audio projects disputes this version, lamenting that because of Meghan and Harry's insistence on silence from employees and their own reticence, the public doesn't know about good projects that had to be abandoned for practical reasons. It feels like the only story is they didn't satisfy their contract, she says. It's not like work wasn't being done. Well, cool, but if you have a contract to deliver, you must deliver, or else you don't get paid. That's how that works. Continuing. As time passed, it would be nearly 2 years between the couple's deal being signed and the premiere of Archetypes. Spotify began applying pressure to produce something, anything, that people might listen to. People involved with production say the couple did trial runs on some big ideas, like a This American Lifestyle show, where Harry and Meghan took turns hosting and talking to interesting civilian guests. Oh, this is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. This is Harry proving what an interesting mind he has. Here we go. Harry's brilliant idea. People involved with production say the couple did trial runs on some big ideas, like a This American Lifestyle show, where Harry and Meghan took turns hosting and talking to interesting civilian guests. As Bloomberg reported, Harry wanted to host a series where he interviewed powerful men with complicated stories like Mark Zuckerberg, Vladimir Putin, and Donald Trump. The concept wasn't just that the men shared challenging early lives, it was that their experiences made them into sociopaths. Or so Harry envisioned. One person familiar with the ideation process says, the person who worked in media confirms there was a, quote, sociopath podcast, unquote. The person who worked closely with the couple on audio projects recalls Harry saying, I have very bad childhood trauma. Obviously. My mother was essentially murdered. What is it about me that didn't make me one of these bad guys. To implore a season's worth of world-famous sociopaths to talk about how they developed sociopathy would be what is referred to in access journalism as a booking challenge. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of getting the feeling that this would have been like that old sketch, that the old SNL sketch that Chris Farley used to do, where he would have a celebrity on, like, I remember one with Paul McCartney. And he would basically, the interview was simply, oh, hey, remember that time you did that thing? Oh, that was so cool. Except in this case, it's Harry just saying, like, so you're a sociopath. Why are you a sociopath and I'm not? Bad things happen to me too, but I didn't become a sociopath, but you did. So what's that all about? To Vladimir Putin. To Mark Zuckerberg. How he doesn't understand as a grown man that people might find that insulting and not something that they would want to be a part of. Why, yes, Harry, let me tell you about how I became a sociopath, which is something I'm going to admit publicly to everybody. He's an I'd like to interview Harry. He seems interesting. I would like to know more about how he became the way he became. And it doesn't have anything to do with what happened to his mom. I don't think that causes someone to not understand that if you went to someone and said, hi, you're a sociopath, I'm not. How'd that work out? That would be problematic. Okay. So continuing this little segment of the article. As time passed, it would be nearly 2 years between the couple's deal signing and the premiere of Archetypes. Spotify began... Oh, I said... Okay, this part is repeated again. Okay. All right. Applying pressure to produce something, anything, that people might listen to. The former Spotify employee says, Harry came to the Los Angeles office once and asked for a cup of cocoa. There was none in the office, so employees scrambled to obtain some. An idea was pitched to Harry. What if he reviewed a hot chocolate every week while chatting with a different friend? Now, that's kind of a lame idea, but it's actually not it's kind of a bad idea. It's not a horrendous idea. But I imagine these poor staffers, when you're working with someone like a Harry, or maybe even also someone like a Meghan, and you're desperately trying to 2 years and they couldn't come up with anything. And you're just grasping at straws. Like, what can we do? What can we do with this guy? And he walks in. This is how desperate they were. He walked in and he said, can I have a cup of cocoa? And they're like, dude, maybe we could do that. It's like those people who eat hot wings, right? It's the whatever that Hot Wings YouTube channel is, where they get celebrities on promoting their movies and what have you, and they have them eat hot wings and then talk about stuff. It would basically, or it's like the Seinfeld podcast, the comedians in cars drinking coffee or whatever that's called, Jerry Seinfeld, and he has, the famous friend come and do the thing. Having cocoa with Harry, hot chocolate with Harry. It's kind of a lame idea, but it's better than nothing. And so what happened? Well, which he and his team considered and rejected. Another concept was that Harry would, quote, fix, unquote, something every week, ranging from a flat tire to global warming. Oh, okay. Not necessarily a bad idea, but it's too reminiscent of Jim'll Fix It, the Jimmy Savile thing, right? I never watched Jimmy Savile, but wasn't that a thing that he did? I don't think you would want to bring up a Jimmy Savile type thing, especially to someone whose family is intimately connected, whose father was palling around with the man. Okay, that seems like a bad idea, although maybe the people who pitched it didn't understand. Okay, continuing. He wanted to do a podcast about disabled people who compete in the Invictus Games, the former Spotify employee says. But there's no crossover between the audience who would listen to that and people who want to hear about Harry's life. Harry and Meghan did produce a 2023 Netflix docuseries called Heart of Invictus, which significantly underperformed Harry and Meghan. Has anyone out there in the chat or what? Heard of or seen Heart of Invictus? Did you watch it? I watched Harry and Meghan, and unfortunately, I watched almost all of the Polo series. Has anyone seen Heart of Invictus? I have to admit, I didn't. Okay, continuing. The former Spotify employee says it was challenging to engage Harry, and a person who interviewed for a job with the couple says, I just felt like he kind of didn't want to be there doing that at this time. My expectation was charming receiving line, and it was clear he wasn't that person, at least that day. And at least in the context of a hiring manager, a person who worked on an event during Harry's book tour says, he has the greatest manners I've ever seen, hands down. Like, I can't believe his knees are as supple as they are. He was getting up and down anytime somebody walked into a room. He was unfailingly kind and friendly to everyone. Well, okay, it seems like his parents did something right. During the interview, the potential employee says, Harry's attitude was either, well, why should I do this? Or, why are we doing this? The interviewee says they wondered, didn't Spotify pay you a lot of money to do this? The person inside the couple circle says, he looks like the kind of guy who would, frankly, happily work for charities for the rest of his life and would be very happy if Meghan made all the money and he didn't need to. But the funny thing is, if they had stayed in the British royal family, he could have worked for charities for the rest of his life, and he wouldn't have had to worry about money. And he wouldn't have had to worry about Meghan or he himself working for money at all. Very confusing. Okay, continuing. On his self-titled podcast, Bill Simmons described his own experience working with the Sussexes at Spotify, and I will clean up this language for general audiences and YouTube guidance. This is Bill Simmons speaking. The effing grifters, except he said the actual word. That's the podcast we should have launched with them. Simmons said, I have got to get drunk one night and tell the story of the Zoom I had with Harry to try and help him with a podcast idea. It's one of my best stories. F them, the grifters. I absolutely want to hear that story. Someone please get Bill Simmons some adult beverages and let's record and a recorder. Let's hear it. I really want to hear that. Continuing. Harry and Meghan became increasingly nervous about how their content would impact them. Marie says, I can say that they had really great ideas for shows, interesting pitches, interesting guests. But then as the deliverers, or either of them as the hosts of these more kind of edgy ideas, would have been like, they would have had to move again. I think it's a combination of self-censorship for good reason, and the corporate powers that be that run podcasting that don't know what that is to create valuable shows. In combination, those things make it really hard to make good stuff. The person who worked in media projects imitates the thought process behind any decision about the couple's projects. Well, he has a million things that he has to protect, and he has the book, and they have the documentary, and they don't want to make the Queen upset, and their public image. That source says the idea for archetypes came from another employee, not Meghan, though the employee didn't own any of the intellectual property. Archetypes began production in January 2021, though the former Spotify employee says the initial expectation was that Archwell would handle production for the series. The process took so long that Spotify's studio, Gimlet, was called in. A source familiar with the production of Archetypes says this required additional cost to and resources from Spotify, though a current Spotify employee refutes that the extra support was a burden. Virtually the entire Gimlet team would be laid off in the year following Archetypes' release, but employees blame mismanagement at Spotify rather than any individual project. Okay, but Vanity Fair allows us to read into this that it was the failure of archetypes that killed Gimlet and not this general Spotify mismanagement. Although it very well may be mismanagement at Spotify. Continuing, the former Spotify source says, archetypes was complicated as a podcast concept. You had to explain what the archetype was, then why the woman embodied it, but also how it wasn't true about her. Every episode was like, this is my friend who has been called that archetype, but is not that archetype. These archetypes, actually stereotypes, included diva, Mariah Carey, and bimbo, Paris Hilton and Eliza Schlesinger. As for those, quote, friends, unquote, there was an expectation that Meghan would be able to use her personal Rolodex to book the show, the way hosts like Simmons and the Pod Save America guys do. The person who worked in media projects says the assumption was Meghan's going to be on the phone with the Pope tomorrow. The former Spotify employee says, in addition to Taylor Swift, they heard rumors that Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion were asked to come on the show and declined. Other people who worked on the podcast also say they heard those names mentioned, though a source close to the situation says Megan Thee Stallion's team knew nothing about any request. There we go again with the Meghan's quote-unquote friends are merely the people that she has to have lunchtime meetings with, like in high school when she was president of every extracurricular activity and group imaginable. So Meghan, to cover up her loneliness and apparent friendlessness, just starts up project after project and invites people to be part of them, and then they are her friends for as long as those projects last. But as Vanity Fair has already told us, Meghan likes projects that she can abandon, that she can start and do and move on. But that means that the quote-unquote friends that come from these projects would also be picked up and abandoned. Correct? Well, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you can keep a friend for a long period of time, but we don't really see that happening, do we? It seems like the friends are cycling in and out. Well, that's one way to live. Continuing. According to the source in media projects, Meghan would agree to provocative ideas and then walk them back. In one episode, she wanted to actually say the word bitch because, as the source remembers Meghan saying, you hear it all the time. It ended up with Meghan calling it the B word. An episode titled Slut, intended to center on how trans women's sexuality is used against them, was retitled Human, Being by Meghan, and had to be completely reimagined late in production. Every episode got more and more watered down and further away from actual conversation, the source says. It felt like very Women's and Gender Studies 101 taught in 2003. Well, darn, now Meghan is being called So 2003. Before, we just had Lainey Gossip saying that American Riviera Orchard felt 2014. It was serving 2014 versus 2024. Now we're all the way back to 2003. This is getting worse for poor Meghan. Okay, continuing. Though the Spotify contract has widely been reported as worth $20 million, two sources told VF such deals are generally not paid out in lump sums. In other words, the couple would not likely have received the full amount without meeting benchmarks beyond making one 12-episode season of a podcast. Spotify does not comment on deal terms. The issues extended into the actual workplace. Terry Wood, an executive vice president at Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Productions, was brought in to be what Meghan would later call her right hand. Okay, I think we're looping back to where we have already read. Her right hand when Archetypes won a People's Choice Award in 2022. Yes, the source familiar with the production of Archetypes describes Wood's anger, saying that she yelled at Spotify staffers when Meghan changed her mind about episodes. Wood did not respond to Vanity Fair's request for comment. And yes, now we're looping back. So, excuse me. All right. Well, to be fair to Meghan, I don't know that we can particularly blame her if Terry Wood was yelling at people. She may not have known that. So that is the article, the Vanity Fair article in its entirety. So going back to I'll pull up the cover again. So this is American Hustle. And you can tell me, what do you think? Do you think that this is the actual turn that the media is going to take? Are Harry and Meghan going to officially become their villains now? I mean, they've certainly played that role to a certain extent, but they've also played the victims. And depending on the media outlet, they take more strongly the sort of pro-Sussex or anti-Sussex attitude. Vanity Fair, much like Lainey Gossip, who was quoted, well, I don't know extensively, but quoted, quite a bit in this article. Lainey Gossip used to be pro-Sussex, now I don't want to say anti-Sussex, but definitely not pro. Vanity Fair, formerly pro-Sussex, now anti. How do you think this is going to turn out? Do you think that this will continue? Will the negativity continue? Will the couple fight back? Will they be able to come back with a project of some kind that will better their image? Will they divorce? That remains to be seen. So this article comes out, the Vanity Fair article hits, and then today, the press and the Vanity Fair article mentioned those Daily Mail articles, and here we go. The Daily Mail thinks they can tell us the real reason Vanity Fair turned on Meghan and Harry. They will reveal that. So let's find out after I resize this a little bit so that we do not have to look at the sidebar there. Okay. Now here is the Daily Mail as of earlier today. Vanity Fair's damning dissection of the Sussexes' 5 years in America could have its roots in a row that allegedly began with Meghan's 2017 cover story, in which she officially announced to the world that she was in love with Harry. For last week's savage takedown, headlined American Hustle, contributing editor Anna Peel spoke to dozens of sources connected to the duo who labeled the Sussexes as the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet. But why did the formerly pro-Sussex publication turn against Meghan and Harry? It seems the relationship soured when the Duke and Duchess of Sussex allegedly accused Vanity Fair of publishing a racist headline on her cover story in October 2017. It was unlikely Meghan would have made the front cover of the Celebrity Bible off the back of her role in Suits, but when the magazine landed a major coup by securing the first interview with Prince Harry's then-girlfriend, it was naturally a sensation. However, according to Valentine Lowe's book, Courtiers, The Hidden Power Behind the Crown, Meghan was unhappy that, despite being a positive piece, the focus of the story was her relationship with Harry. She also allegedly complained that the cover line was racist, and the couple reportedly tried to have the headline on the digital edition changed. Perhaps this cooling of relations between Meghan and the publication laid the seeds for the latest bombshell article, which claimed that some people who worked with Meghan ended up needing therapy, and that she allegedly didn't come up with the idea for her Spotify podcast, Archetypes. The piece also stated that the Duchess of Sussex could be really, really awful when things did not go her way. Oh, I thought they said it was really, really awful, not that she was really, really awful. But see how the Daily Mail picked the quote. Here's Harry and Meghan. Ta-da. According to the Times, the couple have dismissed the allegations, with sources close to the Sussexes describing them as distressing. Meghan's first foray with Vanity Fair began in the summer of 2017, when Meghan wanted a new PR team to help her in the U.S. She hired PR advisor Kelly Thomas Morgan from the New York-based agency Sunshine Sachs. Oh, we used to hear so much about Sunshine Sachs in the early days of the Sussexes. Not so much as of late. Whose clients have included Hollywood stars Salma Hayek, Jane Fonda, and Natalie Portman, Harry and Meghan's neighbor in Montecito. The New York-based agency had been advising Meghan since her days as an actress on legal drama Suits, before she ditched them in 2022. Meghan agreed to do an issue with Vanity Fair in autumn, which Kensington Palace signed off on, but said that Kelly could sort out the negotiations. A close-up, glamorous feature of the Suits actress appeared on the cover of the magazine, featuring her luscious locks and clear, freckled skin, accompanied by the headline that proclaimed, "She's just wild about Harry." The story quoted Meghan speaking openly about her romance with the prince, saying, "We're in love. This time is for us. It's part of what makes it so special that it's just ours, that we're sharing with a magazine. But we're happy. Personally, I love a great love story." There's Meghan. Ta-da. Not a great photo, I have to say. Well, they look much happier there. Okay, continuing. But the Duchess of Sussex was reportedly unhappy with Kelly and disliked the cover story, according to royal author Valentine Lowe. A source was quoted as saying, "She was very unhappy with how that had been handled, and she was looking to throw blame in every possible direction, despite it having been a positive piece. She did not like the photographs. She thought the story was negative. She was upset that it was about Harry, not about her. I'd be surprised if she wouldn't have approval over the photographs and the story itself, quite frankly." But continuing, Harry and Meghan also allegedly thought the headline was racially motivated and pointed out the song "I'm Just Wild About Harry" had been performed by Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney as a blackface number in the 1939 film Babes in Arms. For my whole life, I had heard that song, and I had not understood until I was told just now that was performed by Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney in blackface. I had no idea. But I've heard the "I'm Just Wild About Harry" song so many times before, and no one had ever said that it was a racist song. I had no idea. Harry and Meghan, tried to get it changed online because they thought it had been racially motivated, said the source. Meghan was so angry with Kelly, she wanted to fire her. And although things soon cooled off between Meghan and Kelly, there was a time when her PR advisor was cold with the former Deal or No Deal briefcase model. I like how they bring that up. Meghan was also described as acting like a mean girl's teenager in the article, which was released on Friday. She would reportedly be, okay, well, we read this already. So anyway, it's recapitulating a lot that we've already read in this Vanity Fair article. But it doesn't make any sense that saying that that the reason why Vanity Fair would turn on Meghan and Harry in 2025 is because of a problem that Meghan had with a cover story from 2017, because they've been getting positive publicity from Vanity Fair ever since. So it doesn't make sense. And if they were upset about something, the Sussexes, that Vanity Fair did many years ago, why would Vanity Fair turn now? Nothing has happened. What would Meghan and Harry have done to Vanity Fair? It seems like, well, nothing. Nothing at all. Well, that is interesting. And I noticed this says, these positive comments come off the back of a negative piece published in The Hollywood Reporter, in which Meghan was described as a dictator in high heels. Well, isn't that interesting? So did the true negativity start with, oh, and that's a terrible image. Look at that. Why Hollywood keeps quitting on Harry and Meghan. Oh, but this is from September, so this doesn't come like exactly hot on the heels of this article. Well, isn't that interesting? Yes, the Sussex Survivors Club. We know all about that. It seems like a bit of a recapitulation of a lot of things that had already been put out in the media. Again, the bullying and the, people quitting and not being happy working for the Sussexes, specifically Meghan. This has all been said before. So again, you kind of have to wonder why this is being brought up now-ish. Why now? Really, really unusual. There must be a reason. Is it because of the new president in the White House? Is it because of some, sea change that people are feeling as we're seeing people changing their perspectives and coming out and endorsing things they didn't used to, that they were against before? I don't know. As this article, the Daily Mail article says, Tom Bower, the royal author and investigative journalist, described the recent revelations as devastating for Meghan, especially given her recent attempts to reshape her public persona as a warm, loving mother and wife. Having strongly denied the accusations that she bullied her staff in Kensington Palace, the revival of her image of the difficult Duchess is a disaster just on the eve of the launch of Netflix's With Love, Meghan. Having invested so much to rebrand herself as a loving, caring California mother and wife, the VF disclosures have poisoned the smiling image of the welcoming homemaker. Prince Harry, too, faces growing scrutiny, with experts noting his portrayal in the Vanity Fair piece as lost, out of his depth, and naive. Indeed, he seems more sad and tragic than anything else. Richard Fitzwilliams, a royal commentator, warned that the couple's reputation in the U.S. could be severely damaged. Harry is portrayed as lost, out of his depth, and naive. Neither, according to the article, appear to understand what a successful career in show business actually involves. Well, you would think Meghan would understand. She was raised in Hollywood. Okay, continuing. According to Fitzwilliams, the couple's attempts to project a caring philanthropic image through efforts like helping victims of California's wildfires are unlikely to gain traction in light of the ongoing allegations. The Sussexes are attempting to project a caring image by helping some of those affected by the cataclysmic wildfires currently ravaging California. They won't get far after publicity is given to this. So do you think that they appeared to help the wildfire victims because they knew that the article was coming out? They wanted to get a good publicity, a good photo op, a good video op out there ahead of this? Possibly. Her With Love, Meghan cookery series is, judging from the trailer, saccharine and silly. This was postponed and is now scheduled for a release on 4th March, but unenthusiastic online reaction might make the streaming giant think twice and dump it. And when their contract runs out later in the year, preserve very little of it, if any. Well, are we actually going to see the show? Will we see the show at all? The Sussexes have made so many accusations against the royal family. They, especially Meghan, now have a lot to answer. Nobody likes bullies, especially entitled bullies. He continued, "It speaks volumes that the Sussexes were not available for interview. This is a probing, balanced article that has been researched with interviews from the Sussexes' admirers and detractors. It also makes the case that they are now way out of their depth in showbiz. Also, they are far from being admired by their neighbors in Montecito. They left Britain to escape press scrutiny, yet in the U.S. they want favorable press. The article concludes there is precious little to them, with Harry wanting to reconnect with his family. I fear, whilst he is with Meghan, this is unlikely to occur. Well, I mean, honestly, that's nothing that we haven't heard before, is it? I don't think so. Okay, so the Daily Mail really went all out today, and they published multiple articles about the Sussexes. Here is another one. Well, actually, this is dated the 19th, but it's linked to all the other articles. Yikes. And this says, as U.S. Celebrity Bible publishes damning takedown of Harry and Meghan, why America is finally falling out of love with the Sussexes, just like Britain did. And not to, I don't want to read the entire article, but it is interesting to read this part of it. Vanity Fair, a title that a former editor once told me, has a commercial imperative to write puffery about celebrities because it relies on them to pose for its front covers, oh so true, would continue in much the same fawning vein in subsequent years. It has consistently taken the Sussex's side under its current editor, Rodica Jones, who, just like Meghan, had broken new ground as the first person of color to be given the prestigious job. However, now, in a significant volte-face, Vanity Fair has royally changed its mind about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And yes, again, this just recapitulates a lot of the things that we've already read the article. And if you're coming in late on the stream, you can scroll back, scrub back, and watch and listen as I read the article in its entirety. Okay, so yeah, again, another article. So why has a title that was long one of the couple's most fervent press cheerleaders performed such a drastic U-turn? One answer is that it's reflecting the changing mood of the U.S. media, which, once the couple's greatest champions in recent times, has turned sour. And there's a Meghan from her Netflix show in someone else's kitchen, not her own. And then this is from her supposed home office in Montecito. I'm not entirely sure what kind of work one is supposed to get done with this desk, but not office work, I would say. Anyway, the Sussexes' undisguised loathing for the British press was a key reason why they moved to America, whose own media gave every early indication that it was going to root for the local girl and her prince come what may. Few U.S. media outlets treated their notorious 2021 TV interview with their friend Oprah Winfrey and their neighbor in Montecito, in which they were allowed to trot out a tale of racism and rejection as anything but gospel truth. Yet the U.S. media is apparently tired of their endless victimhood and blinding lack of self-awareness. In 2023, many U.S. reviews of Harry's memoir Spare were negative, with the usually sympathetic New York Times describing his battles with critics as tiresome. In December, another previously loyal liberal media outlet turned on them when The Cut, a website run by New York Magazine, to which 2 years earlier Meghan had given a rare interview, scorned Prince Harry's widely derided Netflix series about polo under the headline, Harry and Meghan's Projects Can't Stop Flopping. That same month, The Hollywood Reporter included the Sussexes in its list of Hollywood's biggest losers, criticizing their Harry and Meghan Netflix series and Harry's memoir Spare as whiny, and described the couple's brand as a sanctimonious bubble just begging to be popped. Vanity Fair may just have done that. In the latest article, its latest article concedes that their love for each other is deep and genuine. Although, if you truly, deeply, and genuinely loved your spouse, would you really be shopping a proposal for a book about your divorce? Well, I suppose it is a mere rumor. We don't know that actually happened. But still, if they're writing it, I would think that the incredibly litigious Harry could sue, or both of them could sue, or Meghan could sue. I suppose it's an accusation against Meghan, could sue for libel. But I suppose if you say it's a rumor, does that give them an out? It still makes Meghan look bad. Well, it being the US, anyone can sue for anything. Much like a ham sandwich can be indicted, a ham sandwich could be sued. So I suppose they could sue if they cared to. But then the discovery would be a real B word, wouldn't it? Because if there were any references in anything, a text, a note that someone had written down who worked for the publishing company, that could be brought out in discovery and proved that perhaps it wasn't libel, but it was actually truth. Okay, continuing. Yes, deep and genuine, but reveals that they're not so generous of spirit to others. Okay. And another recapitulation, the bullying, allegations and whatnot. A lot of recapitulation of text we've already read from the Vanity Fair article, excuse me. Yes, so continuing, as it has shifted over time from fawning to frosty in its attitude to the Sussexes, the U.S. press can console itself that the British media did precisely the same in the 2 years or so between their marriage and abrupt departure to North America. Has the couple, who try so hard to win hearts and headlines, discovered once more that there's only so much Sussex virtuousness that any country can take? And, right, so... And now, again, not reading the entire article, but just to look at the pile on this also from yesterday. Lady Colin Campbell taking a victory lap. I truly pity the royal family. Lady Colin Campbell claims sensational Vanity Fair article on Meghan Markle vindicates her, as she laments that her warnings were ignored. And if you are not familiar with Lady Colin Campbell, she is not born a member of the aristocracy. She married Lord Colin Campbell and then divorced him, but was allowed to keep the name and the title as one can, and she continues to use the name and the title. So she is a lady, but she is not named Colin, although her surname is Campbell. She's called Georgie by her friends, is my understanding. Anyway, Lady Colin Campbell, a fascinating individual, and she's told her own fascinating story herself. I would say that she's worthy of a stream herself, but she's written books, including, I believe, one memoir, and she also has her own YouTube channel where she posts multiple times a week. I don't think it's quite daily. Her updates on things that are going on. I would absolutely recommend you check that out because she's, as I said, very interesting person. She knows a lot of the people that she talks about, and so she can provide an insider's point of view. And she's very entertaining character. So, yes, the socialite who has been a vocal critic, definitely, Lady Colin is a supporter of the British royal family in this, who has been a vocal critic of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, pointed to a damning profile published by the magazine, which includes testimonies from sources who claim to have worked with the couple. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Lady Colin Campbell has criticized Meghan for years, accusing her of being, quote, unquote, very calculating and a, quote, unquote, narcissist for cutting off her father after joining the royal family. But now, in a lengthy post on social media, Lady Colin has claimed that the Vanity Fair article is full of content about Meghan's alleged unsavory behavior, though other quoted sources pointed to the optimism of the couple and Prince Harry's unfailingly kind nature. she said, in a volte-face to end all turnarounds, the article is full of content about Meghan's alleged unsavory behavior. Every word I wrote has been realized, yet at the time I was lambasted by many of the very people who have now jumped on the bandwagon I wheeled into public view. The former I'm a Celebrity star concluded, I truly pity the royal family. This is one saga that is going nowhere but south. And this is Lady Colin Campbell. Dressed down, I would say. There are a lot of photos of her dressed to the absolute nines with tiara on her head. There's Harry and Meghan. Ooh, that's a little creepy. Her cross almost looks like it looks like, I guess it's a plus, but it almost looks slightly inverted. No, thank you. Okay, any more quotes from Lady Colin? I like this photo. It's like Lady Colin said something off to the side, and Harry and Meghan are like, wait, what? What did you say? Say that again? Okay. Anything from Lady Colin? This is just more Vanity Fair, more Vanity Fair. I want to hear from Lady Colin, and you should want to hear more from Lady Colin. Definitely check out her YouTube channel. It is worth a peek. And yes, I like how they credit her with a former I'm a Celebrity star. Lady Colin has done reality television. She owns a castle called Goring Castle, and she calls it Whoring for Goring, where she does commercial work for the money to pay for the upkeep. And what was a recent stream I did? I was talking about how expensive it is to the upkeep on castles and palaces and whatnot. And yeah, so in order to say, you know, patch the roof or what have you of her castle, she does the, you know, commercial work she calls whoring for goring. So Lady Colin Campbell has a very good sense of humor and very self-aware. So that's always enjoyable in a person. And let's see. Okay. My stream has just crossed the 3-hour mark, and that is a sign to get to wrapping it up. And so I'm debating whether I should leave with this little bit of information. Well, why not? It's here. I've got the article. So if you were listening to the beginning of the stream, reading the Vanity Fair article, they mentioned that Harry and Meghan had bought their Montecito mansion at a great discount from an oligarch, and the oligarch was not mentioned by name, but there was a link to an article about the man. This is a different article. That was a link to a Forbes.com article. This is from the UK Telegraph newspaper's website. This is from 2023, and it is an obituary of the man, Sergei Grishin, who sold Harry and Meghan their home for a discount, supposedly because his romantic relationship was so troubled that this incredibly wealthy man had to sell one property that he owned, one of multiples. I think the article will mention this. So this is who Harry and Meghan bought their house from. Sergei Grishin, Scarface oligarch who sold Prince Harry and Meghan Markle their Montecito house, obituary. He claimed to have practically brought the Russian banking system to collapse in the largest bank fraud scheme ever. 13 March 2023, and this is Sergei. Is that an Izod shirt he's wearing? Lacoste? The little alligator on it? That's so 80s, so early 80s, I'd say. Early 80s. Very retro, but back in style, I think. Anyway, Sergei Grishin, who has died in Moscow aged 56, not an old man, was the Russian oligarch who in 2020 sold the Duke and Duchess of Sussex their 9-bedroom, 16-bathroom mansion in the exclusive Montecito neighborhood of Santa Barbara, California. It is not known whether the couple were aware of the vendor's dark past. Well, look at it this way. if they knew who was selling the house, they certainly had people around them to figure out who the man could be. I don't think it would have been a secret to them. Usually when common people buy property, they're aware of who they are buying or selling from or to. The very process of dealing with the finances, the financial aspects of it, lead the parties involved to get to know one another a little bit at least. I also, if I were Harry and Meghan, I don't think I would want to buy a discounted property from someone who was so tainted. But I noticed that this is something that the media has not focused on. I guess they didn't think it was that big of a deal. I guess it's a bigger deal to call Harry a doofus and call Meghan a harridan, a bad employee, a bit of a B word, allegedly, than to look into why these two incredibly wealthy people would have gotten a discount on a house sold by another incredibly wealthy man who, and I see your comment movie of the week in the chat, who would have not only, he's not just shady, he's absolutely criminal, and he's darned proud of it. I don't think you would want to give that man money if you had options, but when you get a great deal, you just got to take it, I guess. And yes, movie of the week in the chat says, and Andrew had no idea who Goga Ashkenazi was. Right. Yes. Andrew meaning Prince Harry's uncle, the Duke of York, and his dealings with Goga Ashkenazi. That's another story for another time. And Andrew's been having his own problems. He's been caught up in a Chinese spy scandal that has been kind of low-key making the news, but people aren't really talking about it that much. That is another story for a future stream, but let's get back to this article. But yes, definitely we'll have to bring up the Andrew and his shady dealings, because if people think that the Jeffrey Epstein stuff is the worst that Andrew has been tied to, there is far shadier stuff, deeper stuff than just where he was sticking his you-know-what. But anyway, continuing with the obituary, known as the Scarface oligarch. Check this guy out. Look at that. Look at that belly. He looks like a Teletubby. Known as the Scarface oligarch because he had previously owned another California estate, which featured in the 1983 Al Pacino film, the heavyset Grecian claimed to have practically brought the Russian banking system to collapse in the 1990s by committing the largest bank fraud scheme ever. And at the time of the sale of the Chateau of Rivenrock to the royal couple, was embroiled in a legal battle with his estranged wife, featuring claims and counterclaims of inappropriate physical aggression. We like to call the V word here on French Dip Media. And I would like to point out that if you are a married couple looking to have a solid foundation to your relationship and the future of your marriage, I would not move into something called Riven Rock, because Riven means broken, like cracked rock, broken rock, not the bedrock, not the foundation of a happy marriage, I would say, something that will break apart. Now, is this going to be foreshadowing? Is this going to be some incredibly poetic foreshadowing for a future divorce of the Sussexes? I don't know, but I'm just dropping that right there. Riven Rock, it's a bad omen, possibly for the future. Okay, and here we have Sergei Grecian pointing to, I have no clue what that is. It looks like a book or a DVD of some kind. I can't read the Cyrillic even. And wow, he is a big-bellied guy. Okay, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's impressive. Okay, Sergei Grecian. Well, there might be a little something wrong with that. The belly fat isn't good for your health, but I'm not trying to body shame the dead man. Sergei Grishin was born on June 21, 1966, after taking a degree in physics from the Moscow Institute of Electronics Technics. That might be a poor translation. As the Soviet Union crumbled, he began his career baking cookies and hot dogs in his flat and selling them on the streets of Moscow. By the late 1990s, he had become chairman of the Rosevro Group, owners of Rosevrobank, established in 1994. Okay, let's do a little math. Born in 1966, got a degree from uni, so let's say that would have been about 1988, perhaps. And then he goes from baking cookies and hot dogs and selling them on the streets for cheap. I looked at, it was either his Wikipedia or another article said he was selling them for like a ridiculously low amount of money. But perhaps that makes sense back in the day in Russia. I would think it would have cost him more to make the cookies, to buy the cookies and hot dogs than what he was selling them for. But yeah, I'm not sure. But we go from a physics grad who's selling cookies and hot dogs out of his flat to becoming the chairman of a bank or the owner of a bank. There's a lot of connective tissue that's missing here, and I'm guessing it's not savory and a lot of not legal things, but it doesn't say. If you notice, it just skips over it completely. Continuing, in 2014, an investigation by the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project listed Rosevrobank among those involved in a $20 billion transfer of dirty Russian funds into the Western banking system, dubbed the global laundromat. Money laundering. One expert described the scheme as the pipe through which the proceeds of kleptocracy flow from Russia to the West. And this is a photograph from inside the Chateau of Riven Rock, Harry and Meghan's new home. This woman is not identified. The lady holding the doggo is not identified. In 2018, Grishin uploaded videos to YouTube, since deleted, in which he boasted of his central role in the scandal. I invented it. I stole a lot in Estonia and Russia. It was the largest fraud scheme because no one knew exactly how much money was stolen. Some estimates suggest that the laundromat might have netted him as much as $60 billion. I'll repeat that. Might have netted him as much as $60 billion. Why would a man with $60 billion have a problem with an ex-wife? He could have paid her off easily. I don't think he needed to sell his property at a discount. California real estate is incredibly expensive. You mean to tell me there were no other takers for the property that would have paid a higher price? I'm disbelieving it. Continuing, Grishin's aim seemed to be to persuade the Trump administration to grant him U.S. citizenship by implying that he had inside knowledge of Russian criminality, which would be of interest to the FBI. He wanted American officials to know how a single person like me can cause the collapse of the Russian banking system. I want to be safe, he explained. I am kind of under fire right now by the criminal world of Russia, by the top government officials of Russia, too. Yes, it's probably a bit of an overlap there, right? Okay. By the time the videos appeared, Grishin had already invested heavily, if unwisely, in U.S. real estate. In 2008, he paid around $20 million for El Furadis, I guess. I don't know what that means. El Furadis, where scenes of Scarface had been filmed, selling it in 2014 for $17.9 million. Okay, 2008, 2014. Would the prices have dropped? Wasn't 2008 the height of the something or other, the whatchamacallit. That's when the banks were all screwy, right? Wasn't real estate up at that point? So perhaps the lesser price might have actually made sense. Maybe. Movie of the week, if you're still in the chat, you would probably remember this better than I would. What was the financial situation like in 2008? Movie of the week. Does it make sense that someone could pay more for a property in 2008 than what they sell it for in 2014? I think that might actually track, but I don't know about Montecito real estate. Okay, continuing. In 2009, he paid $25.3 million for the estate which he sold in 2020 to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle for $14.65 million. Okay, now, again, 2009 and then 2020. Should he have taken that much of a bath on the property? But in 2020, I'm assuming that we were still dealing with pandemic pricing and that the prices were still fairly high. Like, prices were up. People were looking to buy. And so prices were going up. I don't know about Montecito, but that I think is an almost $10 million drop is a lot bigger than this almost $2 million drop. And I think the financial situation at the time of the 2008 and 2014 explains that. I don't think the difference between 2009 and 2020 does. But, movie of the week has not answered me, so I will continue. According to Russian media, Grishin was married at least 3 times. His last marriage in 2017 to Anna Fedoseeva lasted less than a year, sparking a prolonged court battle, with Grishin being accused variously of assault, battery, extortion, DV, meaning domestic inappropriate physical aggression, invasion of privacy, and cyberstalking. Both Anna Fedoseeva and her friend and business partner, Jennifer Sulkes, successfully sought restraining orders against him amid claims of unaliving threats and the hiring of hitmen. Again, why do you need to sell a house at a loss to pay to divorce your wife, who you could pay a certain kind of man to take a certain kind of action against? Now, I'm not saying that's desirable, and I'm not advocating that kind of behavior. I'm saying this is the Scarface oligarch. I would imagine it would be cheaper to do the latter than to do the former. And by latter, I mean the hiring of a man, as opposed to the former, meaning selling your property at a financial loss in order to try to, I guess, give your ex a good financial settlement to make her go away? I don't know. Oh, movie of the week is back in the chat. Oh, well, I apologize, movie of the week. The chat may be... the chat is delayed for me. Well, you're hearing me on a delay, so your responses are delayed to me. Movie of the week in the chat wrote regarding the real estate financials. They were supposed to lend to low-income and no-credit people to allow access to home ownership, but they intentionally lent to people they knew would default and then sold the debt to other people. Right. That wasn't my question, movie of the week. My question was... the first property that Grishin sold at a loss, he paid $20 million in 2008, sold in 2014 for $17.9 million. So almost $2 million of a difference, right? But in 2008, would real estate prices not have been high and then come down by 2014? By contrast, the second property, the one that was sold to Harry and Meghan, purchased in 2009 for $25.3 million, sold in 2020 for $14.65, almost $10 million less. However, 2020 was in the middle of, I'm bad with dates, but I thought that was still when prices of real estate had gone up and were up because of lockdown purchasing, right? So my question was, does the financial situation in the United States account for the property, the $20 million property being sold in 2014 for a little bit less, but not explain the $25.3 million property that was purchased in 2009 being sold in 2020 for almost $10 million less? Do you understand what I'm saying? I know it maybe seems a little confusing. Depends on when in 2008, but that is quite possible. I also imagine that when Grishin bought the property, it was just whatever the asking price was. He probably just said fine and threw the money at them and didn't even bother to haggle or negotiate. Anyway, back to the article, which is almost over. Okay, Grishin was later reported to have begun a relationship with Ekaterina Loginova, a former model who reported that she had packed her bags and fled back to Russia after Grishin issued unalive threats against her. Hey, what a jerk. After selling the chateau of Rivenrock to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Grishin, somewhat surprisingly perhaps, returned to live in Moscow, where his death, allegedly from, quote, circulatory problems in his brain, unquote, that sounds like a massive euphemism for something else, leading to sepsis, was reported by Baza Media, B-A-Z-A Media, which has close links with Russian authorities. So, of course, that's the official party line that Grishin died from some kind of... But I mean, think about what that is. Circulatory problems in his brain. So the blood is not flowing to your brain properly. How would that happen? I can think of a couple different ways that could happen. It could happen by somebody putting their hands around your throat. It could happen from someone using an implement, a tool of inappropriate physical aggression on your head. I can think of a lot of ways that the blood might have problems circulating in your brain. Now, whether they would lead to sepsis or not, I am not a medical doctor. I can't give you that diagnosis. But anyway, so Grishin, kind of interesting guy, yeah? How did he manage exactly to make his money? Why was he so proud of announcing that he had brought down the Russian banking system? Why was he not allowed to sing to the FBI? And why, knowing that his life was being threatened by Russian criminals and Russian politicians alike, which feels like a Venn diagram that completely has two sections that completely overlap, but why would he move back to Russia when there are, hundreds of other places in the world that one could go to? It seems like a bad idea. It seems almost like a self-unaliving wish, if you catch my drift. So anyway, that was just a little nugget pulled from the Vanity Fair article. It's all well and good to talk about, what goofy people the Sussexes might be, with maybe not so great ideas for their media projects, maybe not having the best, shall we say, bedside manner with their employees, with the normies, the commoners. But this is the kind of thing that actually I find so much more interesting. The things that the media really just doesn't want to look at. I mean, they didn't even mention this man's name in the article, in the Vanity Fair article, but they certainly were willing to link to the Forbes.com article. I'm trying to, here it is. This was the link. Not reading the article. It will let me look at it. I didn't know if this was behind a paywall, But yes, the Forbes article from 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle cut a great $14.7 million deal on Sergei Grishin's Montecito estate. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't offer someone that great of a deal unless I wanted something in return. But I can't imagine what Harry and Meghan could have possibly offered to Sergei Grishin that he would have been willing to give them such a discount on an estate. I wasn't planning on reading this, but since it's here, and I'm here, and you're here, I'm going to go ahead and read it. And if you're here, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. This is French Dip Empire, and I am the Empress. And we have been reading, we did read already, the entirety of Vanity Fair's February 2025 cover story / hit piece on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And now we're just wrapping up the stream with a little bit of digging into one of the links that Vanity Fair attached to their article, their cover story here, American Hustle, and that is this Forbes article. So let's just breeze through this, and then we will wrap up the stream for today. Okay, here we go. In a number of luxe abodes that they have inhabited and summarily abandoned, 4 to date, the last 36 months, and keep in mind this is from August 2020, the last 36 months have been eventful ones for the world's most celebrated self-deroyalized couple. But then again, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are nothing if not agile when it comes to fleeing whatever situation does not strike their fancy. Okay, Forbes, not a fan of the Sussexes, I'm saying. Clearly, also, their purchase of the highly contested Russian oligarch Sergei Grishin's former 7.4-acre, 9-bed, 16-bath Montecito estate for $14.7 million in early July is an admirable attempt at putting down roots in Southern California. The buyers got a lot of bang for their buck by California standards. Even the most casual observers will hope that the prospect of a permanent or even just a semi-permanent foothold in their chosen region will afford the damp, strained former royals a measure of respite, as well as an opportunity to settle down and look for gainful employment. Get a job, you grifters. Okay, Forbes, not fans. And here is the Duchess Meghan with the Princess of Wales, as she is now, Catherine. That was, this must have been Wimbledon, because I can see Martina Navratilova. It was, I remember the outfit, that's right. Anyway, continuing. In the relatively gilt enclave of Montecito, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are now the neighbors of one of their most powerful guardian angels, namely Oprah Winfrey, whose 42-acre promised land estate reigns as the celebrity property of the community. In fact, it may be that Ms. Winfrey gave the signal to Prince Harry's and Meghan Markle's lawyers and agents that the Grishin property had been languishing on the market at vastly higher prices for the better part of a decade. So Grishin was in no hurry to sell. He bought it in 2009 for a reported whopping $25.3 million. Who did he buy it from, I wonder? I guess I could look it up. To the extent that Oprah Winfrey or Prince Harry and Meghan Markle can be said to live anywhere, close observers and fans of the couple can comfort themselves that whenever their next external or self-induced crisis hits, the exile prince and Ms. Markle, she's not Ms. Markle, she's his wife. I mean, okay, maybe they're being feminist, but come on, they're not. She's the Duchess, Princess Harry, Mrs. Mountbatten Windsor, whichever you prefer, can avail themselves of plenty of positive, possibly even on-camera counseling by a master of the art In the national chat show sweepstakes, Ms. Winfrey certainly now seems to have the inside track on bagging the first interview with Harry and Ms. Markle. Well, she certainly did a good job with that, didn't she? Remember that? Remember the interview? Especially since the other big-name showrunner and Montecito resident, Ellen DeGeneres, is now tainted and fully beleaguered with multiple accusations of having fostered a toxic work environment. Oh boy, howdy did she. Movie of the week in the chat. As for Harry and Meghan, yeah, that would have been pricey. Doesn't make sense, the price. 2009 was the absolute bottom of the market. Either he paid someone off with the $25 million purchase, or Harry and Meghan got paid off with the $15 million one. Question for you, movie of the week in the chat. Could it be both? Could it be both? Oh, well, there's a heartwarming headline. Citadel, D.E. Shaw, and the world's top 20 hedge funds gained a record $94 billion in 2024. Wow. My heart is warmed, absolutely warmed. I was worried what the hedge funders would do in 2025. I'm so glad to know that they, unlike so many other people, managed to profit in 2024. Great. Okay, continuing. The buyers affected the purchase of the former Grecian estate with a $9.5 million mortgage, according to public records. On paper, anyway, it seems that Mr. Grecian, whose checkered legacy in the States and in Russia is studded with scandal and extraordinary legal dust-ups, took a little bit better than a $10 million hit on the sale. 16 baths is an extraordinary number to be reported in the place, which is relatively new, having been built in 2003, but presumably a few of those baths belong to the estate's outbuildings, pool, and tennis court. Put another way, there's plenty of room for Harry's mother-in-law. Oh, and her name is misspelled as Dora Ragland. It's Doria, who has been taking care of young Archie since I'm not going to say that because YouTube has a problem with that illness, the lockdown, you know what I'm talking about, lifted while they were at Mr. Perry's house, Tyler Perry, to move in with them. Did they mention Tyler Perry earlier in this article? It says Mr. Perry, but I didn't recall him being referred to earlier. So that's a mistake. Okay. The larger question is whether this abode is able to provide the peripatetic couple with what they need to stay for a while. Okay, this just goes on and on about Montecito, blah, blah, blah. Here they mention Tyler Perry. Oh, yeah, that's right. Less than 8 weeks into Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's stay in Tyler Perry's mansion in Beverly Hills, the city of Los Angeles opened a hiking trail on an opposite hillside, causing Harry's security detail to erect screens along one flank of Mr. Perry's estate to prevent any telephoto lens-bearing hikers, quote-unquote, of privacy-invading intent, of which there were more than a few, from occupying the opposing hillside as a photo readout. When the screens went up, thus negating the opposing hill's tactical value, the paparazzi responded by sending fleets of drones over the house, which, sadly, never stopped. And I remember that from the Meghan and Harry Netflix show, putting up those obnoxious screens, which didn't really, they just looked dumb and didn't seem to be like it would work. And yeah, it's obvious they're going to use drones, and then they do. And I have to say, I would imagine that drones are far more annoying and difficult to deal with. And if you don't want to have your photo taken, than just people on a hiking trail nearby, but whatever. You know what you do? You go out, you let them take a photo, and then you say goodbye. And once they get their photo, they go away. Harry knows this. And he also knows that the more of a challenge you create, the more of a challenge you create. Oh, you don't want us to get the shot? We're going to get the shot. And they, the photographers, I mean, it's not a nice business, but they need that money. So Harry might desire his privacy, but they need the shot, and they're going to get paid for it if they get it. there's no winning. There's really no winning that. Oh, movie of the week in the chat says, yeah, you can have margins on both sides, lol. Yeah, well, and I am curious, who did Grecian buy this from, but I don't know that we'll look at that right now. Maybe another story for another time, but okay, is there anything more? Okay, most of this just talks about the Meghan and Harry and their security issues. And yeah, what happened with Travelist, Harry's sustainable travel philanthropy? Did that completely collapse? I don't remember hearing much about that. Okay, so... Oh, yes. Well, Guy Martin, the author, very accurately wrote back in 2020, bottom line, from the British perspective, aside from having finally locked down a private tennis court, a lovely pool, and plenty of breezy hilltop space for Master Archie, hey, that's Prince Archie to you, to run around with his American grandmother, Harry is at sea. Well, I think at this point that has never been more true than ever before. And expect a king tide of paparazzi now. Unusually high king tides batter the seawall at, what is this, Butterfly Beach at Santa Barbara. Well, Harry is at sea. And I think that's a perfect way to end this stream. Harry is at sea, and he and Meghan have been broadsided, I imagine, by this attack from their former champions, the Condé Nast publication, Vanity Fair magazine, joining, what is it, Hollywood Reporter and Lainey Gossip and who knows who else on the now, I guess, anti-Sussex train. So what do you think will be happening in the future? Do you think the Sussexes will split? Do you think Meghan will finally be able to shop her post-divorce book and spill all of the secrets, all of the dirty secrets of the British royal family that Harry inevitably spilled to her? Will she turn on Harry and make him the victimizer? Certainly possible. It would be I don't want to say a good look for her, but it seems to be there's a playbook one could take that page out of. And what about Harry? Can Harry return to the fold? If there is a divorce, will he move back to England? Will he return to the British royal family? Will they welcome him with open arms? Will they keep him at an arm's, length distance? Do you think the future King William will ever trust Prince Harry again? If I were Harry, I think I would be a little reluctant to go back into that situation. But where is he right now? He's at sea. The Americans don't love him anymore. The British don't love him anymore. Does Meghan not love him anymore? What will happen with Meghan, with Harry? What do you think? Leave a comment. Leave a comment on the video because, well, the chat is about to go away because this is the end of the stream. And this is French Dip Empire. I am the Empress, and we will be back for another stream discussing more topics. Again, we'll be continuing the saga of Jocelyn Wildenstein and the Wildenstein family. We've currently got a series going on that, and I'm going to start up a new series that was delayed because of the Vanity Fair article on Harry and Meghan. This was to be a stream about Le Bal des Débutantes that happened at the end of last year, 2024, but that is now been pushed forward. So that is coming up. And yes, movie of the week in the chat says William is pissed AF at Harry. Yes, and William supposedly has a very nasty temper and holds grudges. And so this split, I'm sure, a long time in coming. I'm sure there was a lot of time that William gave to try to give his brother a chance. Nobody wants to cut off a family member. Nobody wants to have to break up their family. It's a terrible thing. But Can they reconcile? I mean, hey, who doesn't love a nice redemption arc? Everybody loves a good redemption arc. So, if Harry could come back into the fold and be part of the royal family again, I think everyone would, be pretty happy about that. And there is a bit of a precedent, going off a little bit on a tangent, in the Dutch royal family. One of the Dutch king's cousins, a female cousin of the current Dutch king. Her mother is a Dutch princess. Her father, the Duke of Parma. Parma no longer has the royal duke, obviously, ruling over it. Italy does not have a seated monarchy any longer. But if Italy had royals, well, this man would have been a royal in Italy. And so the king's cousin contracted a marriage to a man who was not fond of the monarchy. And she and her husband came out in the press. They made negative statements about the monarchy, about, I believe at the time, it was the Queen Beatrix was on the throne. She's called Princess Beatrix now, but really she's the former queen. And it was, for a few years there, it was quite a nasty little bit of business with Princess Margarita and her husband Edwin, and it was very exciting. And then in the end, she divorced her husband, and then she was brought back into the fold, and now she is remarried to an incredibly wealthy... Wait, did she remarry No, her younger sister married the department store heir. Well, anyway, she remarried, and everything is fine and dandy, and now she's back into the fold. So there is a precedent. You can walk away from the family and throw mess at your family and then be brought back into your family. But the consequence was she had to get rid of the spouse, the troublesome spouse. It's pretty obvious that for Harry to go back to the British royal family, he would have to get rid of his troublesome spouse, with whom he is supposedly very much in love. So, what will happen? We shall see. So, if you've made it this far, thank you for joining us. I'm the Empress. This has been Friendship Empire. Like and subscribe. And you know what? Bookmark the channel, because sometimes YouTube doesn't give those notifications. And if you bookmark the channel, you will always know where to come back for another stream. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.